District 3, Jason Crone, that's myself, and I'm here. District 4, Ken Mossman.
Here.
Thank you. District 5, Mike Prell.
Here.
At-large, Rich Blankish.
Here.
And at-large, Jeff Bertram.
Here.
And then we've got our Board of Commissioners member, Joe Persky. And here. All right. With that, the first item, Steve, are you ready to roll on the best practice training?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think I am. Good evening. My name is Steve Hammes. I'm the Assistant Administrator for Stearns County, and I want to thank you for having me at your meeting. Last year, I was out at one of your sessions, or was it last year or the year before? With COVID, everything blurs together. I was at one of your sessions to talk about county training on respect in the workplace. And again, we are rolling out training for all of our boards and committees, all of our members of the public. Again, the county thanks all of you for your service, and it's important that we have members of the public who are willing to serve and participate in the decision-making of items that come before the county. It's one of the hallmarks of our democracy, and so I want to thank you for your service. Part of the goals of the county talk about professionalism and accountability and accessibility and relatability. And as part of that, again, we strive to always ensure that our employees are being as much a consummate professional as always. And the county board and county administration have really been moving in the direction that when you are volunteers, you're no longer representing yourselves. When you're sitting on any board or committee of the county, you are now representing the county, no different than employees are representing the county in their roles as well. And so again, the ideals of professionalism, relatability, and accessibility pertain just as much to all of you as they do to all of our employees. To that end, the county has established a couple of trainings that we've been working on, one of which I'm going to go through today. I'm taking these trainings to a couple of the committees in person to kick the tires on them, walk through them, see how it goes, if there's any tweaks that need to be made, and then I'm going to send it out to all the other boards and committees as a training opportunity, similar to how we did the Respect in the Workplace last time. So at this meeting, I'll be going over our session on best practices that we've established for boards and committees, for actually any kind of committee meeting that's held within the county. And then at the next meeting, I'll be going over Robert's Rules of Order. Again, this is all part to make sure that we're trying to be as consistent as possible across all the boards and committees in terms of how we operate. So with that, the presentation I have here, we worked on with St. Cloud Technical College, and they built it for us. A little technical glyph, so I'm going to try to use the microphone to catch up the audio from the PC as it goes forward. So let's see how this works. And I need my glasses. All right.
So what are public meetings, and why are they so important for our work? Public meetings bring diverse groups of stakeholders together for a specific purpose. They are held to engage a wide audience in information sharing and discussion. Public meetings can be used to increase awareness of an issue or proposal, can be a starting point for engaging constituents, or a means to further public involvement. Public meetings are for people to come together to express their opinions, hear a public speaker or proposed plan, engage in shared learning about a topic, or work together to develop solutions. The main advantage of public meetings is the ability for stakeholders to listen to and talk to each other. By creating a safe venue, people can speak comfortably together, share common issues, and a common purpose. When done well, they help build a feeling of community. In this training, we will be providing best practices in facilitating meetings. First, we're going to review meeting basics. Next, we'll discuss dealing with those difficult participants, and we'll talk about tips to follow when a meeting gets out of control. We hope that this doesn't happen to you, but if it does, These tips will help you to get it back in control. Facilitating meetings using the best practices that you learned today will ensure that you're in line with Stearns County's mission of providing exceptional public services to assure a safe, healthy, vibrant county for all. So let's jump in and get started with the meeting basics. The following are tips on running an effective public meeting. Let's start with some public meeting basics tips. First, start on time. It's your responsibility to call everyone to order and get the meeting off the ground. Many of the meeting participants are volunteering their time to attend, so it's important to be respectful of that time. Get your voice heard. Public meetings are usually held in bigger venues, which aren't necessarily better when it comes to equipment or acoustics, so make sure everyone can hear you. Clarify roles and rules. Decide on guidelines in advance and share those up front. For example, let people know that you will be sticking to the agenda, that comments are to be addressed to the chair, that heckling will not be allowed, or that there will be a question and answer section to allow everyone to have their say. Follow the agenda. It's your responsibility to make sure that the agenda gets followed. If anything extra comes up which needs to be discussed, put it down as an action point for the next meeting. Be fair but firm. Make it clear that debate is welcomed, but personal abuse will not be tolerated. Keep it going. Many people will probably want to contribute their views, but there will come a time when there's no point in continuing with a discussion. You may just be going around in circles, or the same thing might be repeated over and over again by different people. When that happens, it's your job to draw the line under each topic of discussion and keep things moving. Summarize. After each agenda point, summarize the key discussions, opinions, and actions. It's your job to make sure that discussions and actions are clearly understood and that they are moving in the right direction to accomplish the meeting's objectives. Thank your audience. Always thank audiences once the meeting is finished. It's common courtesy and people really do appreciate it. They're more likely to come to the next meeting if they feel like they have made a contribution. It's also a good idea to let them know the date of the next meeting in your closing comments. Now, let's talk about dealing with those difficult participants. Meetings can bring out the best and the worst in people. Some people thrive on the opportunity to share their views in front of a large group. Some try to hide away, while others take over and don't let anyone else get a word in. If you're the one running the meeting, you need to be able to deal with all types of people. Here are some of the more testing participants you might come across and how to deal with them. The first type of difficult participant you may see in a meeting is the aggressive type. This person usually has a grudge to bear or is angry about an issue that affects him or her personally. They can try and dominate the meeting by shouting down and intimidating other attendees, as well as the person running the meeting. So what can you do to deal with the aggressive type of person? Establish ground rules at the beginning of the meeting, such as no one is allowed to interrupt and personal insults are forbidden. Find out what's causing the person to be aggressive, and if it's a personal issue, explain that the meeting can't deal with this. Instead, suggest an alternative arena where they can raise it. Offer feedback to them in private if it's a personal concern they have, and prevent them from making too many contributions by encouraging others to give their views. Who is the talkative type at a meeting? These people usually see themselves as experts on an issue and think they know best. Again, they might dominate the meeting by talking at great length or constantly interrupting. How can you deal with the talkative type? Set limits on individuals' speaking time at the beginning of the meeting. Acknowledge their contribution, but if they're going on too long, try and interrupt as tactfully as possible. Avoid making eye contact so they can't keep interrupting you. And you can always direct questions to other attendees instead. Next up in the list of difficult participants is the argumentative type. Whatever the issue, this type of person will play devil's advocate and argue the opposite of everyone else. It can be useful to see the other side of an argument, but if it goes on too long or gets overheated, it can detract from your meeting. What to do with this argumentative type of person? You can start your meeting by emphasizing the need for constructive comments. Try not to get drawn into their argument. Respectfully acknowledge what they've said and move on. Finally, bring in other participants in the meeting to give their views. The last in the list of our difficult participants is the non-participant. These people are rarer at public meetings. However, they may feel intimidated by their surroundings or by the other people there, and may need some encouragement to speak up. What can you do for this non-participant? Be sure to ask anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak to give their views. If they do speak up, encourage any input they give. If you know they're interested in or are an expert in a specific area, ask for their expert opinion. Finally, if all else fails, handing out questionnaires for people to fill in is a great option for people who might be too shy to speak out. And don't forget to collect those questionnaires at the end of the meeting. Now that you have some tips to deal with the difficult personalities at your meeting, it would be nice to think that if you arrange and publicize your meeting properly, everything will go off smoothly. Sadly, things don't always go to plan, and if you're talking about an emotional issue, the discussion may develop into a dispute. So, here are some tips on handling a meeting that has gotten off track. So, what can you do when a meeting gets out of control? First, keep your cool when tempers flare. Take a few deep breaths or count to 10 in your head. Make the purpose clear. Public meetings can be held for all sorts of reasons. Maybe something's already been decided and you need to meet to delegate tasks to participants. Make sure that you make the purpose of the meeting clear. If something's already been decided, it's not up for discussion. If people come expecting a debate and that doesn't happen, they're more likely to make their voices heard in less organized ways. Explain the rules. Explain the structure of the meeting before it starts. You might, for example, make it clear that speakers are not to be heckled and that there may be a question and answer session afterwards. You could emphasize that all comments are to be addressed to the chair and that attendees must put their hand up and wait to be called on before speaking. The structure should also be explained in the agenda, which every attendee should have, but it never does any harm to reiterate the agenda as some attendees won't bother to read the handouts. Be polite. If someone heckles you, don't get involved. Trading insults won't do much for your credibility and will just waste the time of the attendees who are there to support or engage in worthwhile debate. Firmly point out to the heckler that you're anxious to hear all points of view, but that these must be given at the correct time and in the correct form. If you're polite, it's likely that the majority will side with you. Once a heckler realizes that he or she is in the minority, they will hopefully either quiet down or leave. Debate, not disruption. If you're nervous, it's easy to mistake a passionately held viewpoint for a disruptive comment, especially if the viewpoint doesn't fit with your own. Don't come down too hard on people, otherwise, you might find that others are nervous about speaking up. It's a fine line to tread, but once you're in the meeting, you should get a feel for the amount of discipline needed. Don't be afraid to say you don't know. Hopefully, you'll have done your research before the meeting starts, but there's always a chance that someone's going to hit you with an issue you know nothing about. If this happens, remain calm. Use the old politician's trick of repeating the question or using a phrase such as, "That's a very interesting point." This gives you a few seconds to get your answer straight in your mind, reducing the possibility of stuttering or sounding unsure. If you don't know the answer, admit it. Say something like, "I wasn't aware of that particular issue. Does anyone else here have any knowledge about it?" If nobody else speaks up, ask the questioner to see you after the meeting to give you some background. It could well be something important, and even if it's not, you'll look good in front of your audience. Maintaining civility in meetings sets an example for all participants and creates a culture of professionalism. This can sometimes be a challenge, but it will pay off in a smoother, more pleasant experience for participants and for you. Here are a few ways to keep meetings civil. First and foremost, the golden rule. Everyone should treat others how they would like to be treated. Aim for a tone that is both friendly and professional. Demonstrate civility toward everyone, whether you are addressing other members of the governing body or members of the public. Use titles and last names as a sign of respect. Separate the person from the problem. Avoid personal attacks, name-calling, or questioning people's motives. These actions undermine your effectiveness and your message. This is true for debates and interruptions as well. Avoiding these will help you stay on message. Be attentive and use active listening skills. Active listening is fully concentrating on what is being said, rather than just passively hearing the message of the speaker. Make sure you comprehend the message. Pay attention to the speaker's verbal and nonverbal language to fully understand what they are trying to communicate. Retain the information. Try to remember key points of the speaker's message, take notes if necessary, and then respond by summarizing or paraphrasing key points. Embrace diverse points of view. Different sides of an issue should be explored, and those who will be affected by an outcome should be allowed to share their views. Even if you disagree with someone's proposed solution to an issue, they may have points that should be considered. Limit statements in discussions to those that move the conversation forward. Keep remarks brief, to the point, and non-repetitive of comments others have made. Here are some additional suggestions to make sure that your meeting is effective and goes off without any problems. First, government is known for having many abbreviations and acronyms. Try to avoid using these, or at least explain them the first time you use them so that all participants understand their meanings. If decisions are going to be made at the meeting, make sure there is enough information provided so that members can make informed choices. Anticipate any questions that might arise and have
anybody hear me?
staff from other departments at the meeting to respond to those technical questions that you might not be able to answer. Provide a range of ways for people to share their ideas. Not everyone.
If you can hear me, just nod your head.
Remember our non-participant that we talked about earlier.
Okay.
Consider
Thank
ways
you.
to gather ideas and input that don't involve public speaking. Make timely decisions. Sometimes there will be pressure to put off making a decision until everyone is in agreement, but try to avoid delaying decisions. Don't give in to the pressure of groupthink. Groupthink is the practice of thinking or making a decision as a group that discourages creativity or individual thinking. At the same time, avoid reactionary decision making based on one or two upset citizens. They may be the most vocal, but that doesn't necessarily mean they represent the majority. Thank you for taking the time to watch this training on best practices in meeting facilitation. By following these suggestions, you will honor and exhibit Stearns County's values: being professional, approachable, responsive, collaborative, fair, and equitable. Thanks again, and have a great meeting.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Again, the efforts that we're trying to make are to ensure that we provide enough training and background. We train our employees on aspects of leadership, development, professionalism, and things throughout the year. It's only fair that, again, for those of you citizens who are stepping up to serve on these committees, for us to expect you to adhere to the same values and expectations that we provide training to you on these same issues as well. So again, this is us trying to, again, lift everyone up, establish a new benchmark for what we expect of boards and committees, and hopefully this helps. I don't have anything else. If there's any questions or comments you have for me at this time, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, I'll leave you to the rest of your agenda.
Okay. Any questions for Steve or comments? All right. Appreciate the training. Good takeaways there. If we can, if we have more of these coming up, if we could try to put them towards the end, though, just so we can get through the other agenda items. And in the future, that'd be, I think, helpful for people that are participating. So,
not a problem.
But good. Thank you for coming, Steve.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we'll move to agenda item number 1, which is to consider a rezoning request submitted by Jason and Jill Beck of Kimball, Minnesota, according to Section 4.10 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to rezone approximately 18.9 acres from R10, residential 10, zoning district to the residential 5, R5 zoning district. Property is part of Government Lot 7, lying west of Badger Road and School Section Lake in Main Prairie Township. Property address 14181 Badger Road in Kimball. Do we have the applicants with us virtually? Or okay, go ahead, come on up. There's a spot for you up here. And if the microphone buttons are not on, there's a little green light. If you hit push, then you'll know that that's live. And if you wouldn't mind stating your name and address for the record.
Yep, I'm Jill Beck, and my address is 14175 Badger Road in Kimball.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
With that, we'll maybe go through the staff report. Heidi, take us through that.
All right, so this request for rezoning is to rezone approximately 18.9 acres from the residential 10 zoning district to the residential 5 zoning district. This is on School Section Lake in Main Prairie Township. And the property has access from Badger Road, which is a township road. It's a mixture of grassland and woods and some wetland. Part of the lake encroaches into the property. There's no setback impacts with the proposal. There's approximately 27 homes and 1 registered feedlot within a half mile of the property. The surrounding area is a mix of agricultural land, lakeshore residential lots, rural residential lots. There's a mining operation, and then School Section Lake. There's also a variety of zoning: agriculture 80, agriculture 40, residential 10, and residential 1, all within a half mile of the property. School Section Lake is a natural environment lake, so it's within shoreland of that. Under the residential 10 zoning, they currently have 1 residential building entitlement on the property. If they rezone to residential 5, there will be 3 building entitlements on the property. The property is located within the agricultural and rural areas on the future land use map, and Main Prairie Township did recommend approval of the rezoning. And that's all I have until we take public comments.
All right. As the applicant, anything you want to add to the staff report, Jill?
No, that sounded right on. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Real quick roll call of members that visited the site. We'll just start from left to right since I've seemed to misplace my notes. Sean?
Yes.
All right. Jeff?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
I am a yes.
Yes.
Rich, thank you. Mike?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
All right. And that covers that. With that, oh, thank you very much. Yeah. It's up here somewhere. I just misplaced it. Thanks, Angie. Any discussion on this item before we open up the public hearing? All right. With that, we will open public hearing. And is anyone here from the public? I know we have some comments that came in via email that Heidi will read in. Is there anyone here on this topic? Seeing none, Heidi, if you can go ahead and read in or paraphrase.
Yep, I'll summarize. We did receive two letters regarding this one, which were sent to you guys yesterday. The first one was from John and Tammy Lee Adolph. They opposed the request. The rezoning doesn't meet the goal to support agriculture. Land could be turned back into agricultural land, and rezoning would remove that option. More residences would impact agricultural property, additional houses on lake shore and near wetland. There's an additional feedlot within a half mile. The rezoning would set a poor precedence and goes against the comprehensive plan. And then the second letter was from Robert and Beverly Adolph, Ray Adolph, and Jerry Adolph. They are also opposed, stating the rezoning would increase the number of residences in the area and remove the property from potential agricultural production. More homes would be impacted by farming practices, and it would increase the number of homes on the lake.
All right. Thank you, Heidi. Any comments or any response to the public comments?
I mean, there are neighbors to the west, so they have a large farm operation. So if you look at the western line there, that long strip of field, that's their field there. And then they have cows going further west there. So it's the father and son that rode in. I mean, it's maybe what they would prefer. I don't see how it would impact them at all personally. We don't really ever see them. We see their tractor sometimes going through the field, but everyone has got their opinion about what should happen. It's a lot of land. It's not going to be, having more than 5 acres for one house in that area. There's a whole bunch of houses. So, I can understand they just don't want more people. And they've been there. Their family has been there for, I think they're second generation. So I understand their desire to keep it low. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you. Hearing no other public comments, motion would be in order to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
All right,
to
motion
close
made by
the public
Rich.
hearing. I'll second it.
All right, second by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion moved, public hearing closed. Any other discussion by planning commission members?
Mr. Chair, just a question for staff or the applicant. So the property line, there's the bay on the northeast corner. And there's what appears to be a small lake in the middle of the property. Can that small internal lake access the larger lake?
Yep, it is. It was once an irrigation pond, probably 20. So we've owned the land 23 years, I think. And I think it was unfarmed for 20 years before that. And so before that, they dug the pond and irrigated out of it. It is connected now. Oh, yeah, you can see there. You can, so there's probably, that looks maybe bigger than, but it's probably less than around 10 feet maybe where you can, I mean, we kayak through it. So it does connect. The furthest southern part of that pond is usually more just a bunch of, water grass kind of stuff in there. But this time of year, it looks like it's pretty wet.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Joe.
Jill, I got a couple questions for you.
Yes,
And that is just Badger Road comes all the way down to that peninsula there with the roundabout is?
it does.
And that's a township road?
Yes.
So that you would have access there?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
And then as far as getting to the section that's in the northwest corner,
Mm-hmm.
because of the shape of the property there, would you have to mitigate any wetland to get to that, or is it dry enough to be able to drive over there?
Yeah, when we had originally thought about building there ourselves, we had, if you look along that horizontal line, that's all high. So, right, yeah, the horizontal southern line,
Mm-hmm.
that's, you can see actually our kind of walking
Okay, so
trail.
you can come from the south there and then
Yep.
head to the north?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm just curious because, it's rather expensive and difficult sometimes to
Right.
mitigate wetlands, so.
Yeah, right. Yep, that's a good question.
Good, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Persky.
Mr. Chair, just one more question. So it's the township road. It was sort of snowed in when I got down there, so I couldn't see the entire turnaround.
Oh, sure.
Do we know if the turnaround is large enough for emergency vehicles, school buses, whatever else may need to come down there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know because nobody lives down there. They have the park model at the end there, and then the Zipaways own that whole next chunk next to that. So no one has ever. I mean, there's trucks and stuff that go through there, but I'm not sure about a school bus.
Okay,
Not,
thank you.
yeah. I don't know if it's much smaller than that cul-de-sac right there, but.
All right, any other questions or discussion items?
I guess I have one. Oh, sorry.
Staff, isn't there a minimum requirement for a cul-de-sac?
Well, the minimum right-of-way dedication for a plat for a new road is 66 feet. Angie, you might have to correct me if I'm wrong. Is it 120 feet radius? No, diameter. 60-foot radius on the cul-de-sac.
Because I know fire departments and bus companies have kind of stated minimums.
Right.
So there is.
I believe that's what's in our ordinance is a 60-foot radius.
Even if it's on a township road.
Right.
So just be aware of that.
Mm-hmm. I do have one, and maybe about the same thing, is that I think even from because of the type of lake this is, you have to be, you all would know how many feet from the ordinary high water to even build. So I don't even know if that whole last northern part of the township road would even be the area where if someone were to build, if that would even be a possible location. I don't think you can get far enough away. You may be able.
The building setback for a natural environment lake is 200 feet from the ordinary high water level, and then they have to be 63 feet from the center line of the road. So, yeah, the northern part of that property, it won't meet that lake setback.
Yeah.
But even if it isn't built on the roads, is there traffic ultimately would have to go down and come back out? So even if nobody builds down there, it's a dead-end road. They have to go down and turn around and come back.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you mean the kind of the last cul-de-sac or the tar?
The last one.
Okay. So, I mean, what we had thought, if someone were to ever build on it, that they would use the tar cul-de-sac, and that's where the driveway would go in, right from there, from any point of the. Does that make any sense?
wherever the driveway and the cul-de-sac is, I'm just trying to help you out.
Okay.
Before they sting you,
Yeah.
it's gotta be whatever they tell you it's
Yeah.
gotta be.
So even though they wouldn't use that end of the road, that the end of the road would need,
Well, if it's a
This-
one-way road, one way in only,
mhm.
you gotta turn around.
Right, where that red or the pink line is, that's where I was thinking that, there's,
Road is built and the cul-de-sac is built, just make sure you meet the standards,
okay.
I guess. And then the Adolph said that there's 2 feedlots in their letter. Is that accurate, Heidi, or?
I believe they're referring to their feedlot, which is just over half a mile from the boundary of this parcel. Now, Beck's owned the adjacent parcel, so it's within a half mile of that parcel, but that's not what the request for the rezoning is. So I did double check that. It is a little over a half mile. So that's why it wasn't included in the
So
staff
it's
report.
One feedlot then within the
Right.
With-
mile.
Yep,
With-
and that's Beck's feedlot.
Got it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Angie Berg,
Angie.
Environmental Services. Just to clarify, Jeff, on the road portion, and I know we're not here for a plat, and you won't actually see this plat because it's a minor subdivision, but if there's a surface built, the subdivision ordinance doesn't require it to be brought up to a particular specification. So that would be between Beck's and Main Prairie Township if Main Prairie Township wanted something different, but Stearns County ordinance, if there's a surface constructed and there's road dedicated, it does not have to be built up. So I just wanted to be clear on that so there's no misunderstanding in the future.
All right, very good.
And Mr. Chair, one clarification. So in the John and Tamale Adolph letter, this property is currently zoned R10, so it's not ag zoned, it's residential zoned.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Any other discussion items? Hearing none, we can move into the findings of fact. Number 1, is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, Sean Blackburn, I believe it is consistent, especially when we look at the map and the area there. It's a transitional area, we have called it, and you're getting a nice mix of things there. I think it fits fine.
There are a couple of other R5s within the proximity, so thank you, Sean. Number 2, does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county? List the applicable sections.
Mr. Chair, Sean Blackburn, it does conform to the future land use map in the agricultural rural area with a natural resource overlay. I would cite the comprehensive plan goals and objectives and the living goals. Number 2, to manage the impacts of growth and development.
All right, thank you, Sean. Number 3, is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? Why or why not?
I would say it is. There's 27 homes in the area.
Thank you, Member Bertram. Number 4, has the applicant demonstrated that standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
There really wasn't much to,
There was not a lot discussed. I think some of some of the comments, discussion items that were brought up when it comes to dealing with turnaround and traffic and some of the things that need to probably be handled at the township level would cover certain aspects of the ordinance. The rest were not discussed.
Mr. Chairman, even if it isn't required, which I guess I get confused, on the cul-de-sac, there's 2 ways to do this. We've always been told to be proactive. So even if it's not a requirement, let's not wait for you to do it and then somebody come in and say the fire department can't turn around, school buses can't. Maybe just be proactive and do it that it's wide enough that they can do that.
Thank you.
Township doesn't do this every day, you don't do this every day. I always think it's kind of falls on us to help you.
Thank you.
All right, and then, are there any other issues pertinent to the matter?
Township recommended approval.
Yeah, I think that's always a big one when you get feedback from the townships.
There will be public health, safety, traffic generations, and we talked a little bit about that.
I'd also, this is a lake frontage property. So if the applicants or future applicants do put 3 new homes on there, that may have some impact.
Yeah. And a lot of that, to your point, Jason, will have to get addressed in the plotting or the platting of the properties. So, yeah, very good. Anything else?
Just to confirm, Ms. Chairman, Heidi, when did you do a site visit? We asked when we did it, but.
Yeah, I was out there yesterday, March.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. With that, motion would be in order.
I'll move to recommend approval of the county board.
I'll second that.
All right, motion made by Member Bertram, seconded by Member Blackburn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
All right, so I got, I think unanimous ayes except for Member Wienerman. That was the one nay.
Were you the person with the chickens, by the way?
Yes.
I just wanted, any more drones
The
flying around,
feedlot,
or
the feedlot.
are the drones gone?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. No, we really appreciate being able to have chickens and a couple goats again. So we now we're at a year and a half or so, and I tell you, it's a gift to be able to have them. So thank
Well,
you.
thank you for coming.
Yep.
This will then go to the county board here.
Next week. Okay.
Next week,
Thank you.
yes, thank you. All right, with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 2. And let me get my paperwork in order again. Yes,
I got it. Jason, just for the sake of the county board discussion, do you want to share your opposition?
It was just the increased traffic on the road. If we have 3 houses on there and they each have kids,
Sure.
there's traffic generations down there. And also I would anticipate, again, it's a platting question, but we're going to see homes on that lake, a higher density of homes in that area. So I was concerned about the impact of adding 3 homes as opposed to just having the one on site. So that was the reason for it.
Good enough, thank you.
all right, cool, thanks, Jace. All right, so agenda item number 2, and that is to consider a conditional use permit request submitted by Alan and Michelle Locke of Belgrade, Minnesota, according to sections 4.8, 6.7, and 9.3.5B of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439. Their request is to operate a custom butcher shop as an agriculturally oriented business in part of the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter in section 11, lying west of 383rd Avenue, Crow River Township. The property address is 24471 383rd Avenue in Belgrade. We have the applicant here. All right. Alan, I presume?
Yep.
All right, Alan, do you mind just stating your name and address for the record?
Alan Locke, 24471 383rd Avenue, Belgrade, Minnesota.
All right, thanks, Al. We'll probably come back to you in a second, but we'll get the staff report from Heidi.
All right, so the applicants are requesting the conditional use permit to operate their butcher shop as an agriculturally oriented business. This is an existing butcher shop, has been there for the last few years. Property is zoned agriculture 40. The property is not within any overlay districts or areas of concern. There's no wetland concerns with the existing building. Stormwater management's not required. The butcher shop currently has a 2,000-gallon holding tank for that operation. They will need to consult with a licensed septic designer to make sure that that's adequate sizing for what they're doing out there. Road access is from 383rd Avenue. That's existing, and there's no changes proposed with that. The state accessibility code is required to be met. There's no setback issues with the building. They're required to have 2 parking spaces on site, and there's adequate room for 2 parking spaces. There's an existing sign by the driveway, and that meets ordinance requirements. There's 3 homes and 2 registered feedlots within a half mile of the property. The property is in an agricultural and rural area on the future land use map. Suggested conditions. Number 1, the state accessibility code is required to be met. Confirmation from a licensed building official is required to show that the existing buildings meet the accessibility code. Review of the butcher shop shall be completed by June 1st, 2022, and the butcher shop shall be in compliance with the accessibility code by October 1st, 2022. And then consult with a licensed septic designer to determine the adequacy of the existing holding tank by June 1st, 2022. And that's all that I have.
All right, thanks, Heidi. Al, is there anything you'd like to add to the staff report?
No,
Covered it? All right.
I've been doing this for 3 years.
All right. Very good.
We did everything the state wanted, the county wanted, so.
Cool. Thanks, Al.
Mr. Chair, I guess that's my question. He's been operating, why are we going through this at this point in time?
I actually had the same question, Ken, so I'm glad you asked, and I'll, I guess, direct that to staff.
I can take that. Angie Berg, Environmental Services. So Mark Kane, our county assessor, was out. It's no secret, talking to Al about his assessment and indicated that he needed to let Environmental Services know that this was occurring. And
Okay.
Heidi worked with Al, and here we are.
Okay. Okay.
I
So-
had environmental services out there putting my septic tank in, all that stuff. They're out there 4 or 5 times, so.
Yeah. And it wasn't a matter that the county didn't realize that it was the butcher shop business that was happening at the property, or I guess that's,
Mr. Chair, I can't speak to that. I don't know who
Okay.
had what conversations 3 or 4 years
Okay.
ago. I can just speak to what we know happened in the last few months.
okay. All right.
And I
Very
said,
good.
I've been butchering there for 20 years, started with chickens. And then I would fix up my barn, all of a sudden I decided, well, if I gotta put steel on the roof, I'm gonna extend it and double my capacity for my deer hunting and all that stuff. And then someone turned me into the state of Minnesota, so I said, the heck with it, I'm gonna piss them off and fix it up, and I did. And then the pandemic hit, and I've been working 7 days a week for 2.5 years.
Yeah, there's a little demand for butchers right now, so. All right. Any other questions?
I want to know if Ken's clear now with that.
It's as muddy as it was before.
Okay.
There was no reason he's been doing it.
Well, he was been doing it without a permit.
No, he was licensed, like you said, Environmental Services approved the tank. They put the tank in for it, the 2,000-gallon tank.
So would this be an after-the-fact application, sort of, maybe, kind of?
Mr. Chair, Member Wienerman, we don't typically notice, except for alteration, shoreline alterations, we notice after the fact, but we
Okay.
don't typically, and there's no additional fee.
Yep.
Al's been nothing but cooperative with us and the assessor, and we're just trying to
Okay.
get him, compliant with zoning.
Everybody just wanted to see Al, I guess, that's it.
That's right.
Accident that you had that training tonight about argumentative people?
Al, that was actually for you.
I think my reputation might have preceded me again.
All right. We'll go to,
I did
go
have a
ahead,
couple of
Jason.
questions. So you may have answered one of them already. So you said after the pandemic, you've been working 7 days, almost nonstop in this operation. Is this a seasonal business, or have you moved
It's
to a
full-time.
year-round? Okay.
7 days a week is full time.
And then you've got 4 employees now.
Yeah.
Still going to keep 4 employees? Planning
Yeah,
to grow?
I imagine
or?
so. I don't,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Just making sure I'm reading things right. Thanks.
Who do you have pick up your offal then?
Pick my what? Guts?
Yep.
Santa Max out of St. Paul.
Oh, okay.
We slaughter all the blood, guts goes into barrels. I put it in a building, keep it warm in the wintertime so it's not frozen. They come every Tuesday.
Yeah.
and maybe twice a week this summer. And I'll probably be building another building to hold the barrels in. Because one building I use is for my chicken barn, my chicken business.
All right.
And we'll get that one permitted with you, Al, before you build it. Got it. I Bertram smirking at that a little bit, maybe. But yeah, us or the township, for sure.
All right. Any other discussion things? I recognize I did miss the members that visited the site, so we'll go back and do that real quick. And staff, yeah. So we'll start from left to right again. Sean?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Jason? I am familiar with the area, but I did not make it out this time, so I'm a no. Rich?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Yes.
Ken? Joe? And then staff? Perfect. All right. With that, anyone here from the public tonight? And I don't believe there's any correspondence on that either. So
I'll move to close the public hearing.
motion made by Member Bertram, seconded by Member Blankish. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Any other discussion before we move on to findings of fact? Hearing none, we will move on. Number one, is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chairman, it is land use and zoning ordinance number 439, sections 4.8, 6.7, 9.3.5B.
Thank you, Jeff. Number two, does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county? List the applicable sections.
Mr. Chair, yes, it does. A whole variety and suite of the goals. Agricultural goal, under the agricultural plank, ag goal number 1, support ag as a desirable future, a desirable land use. Goal 4 under that, strive and support higher farm profitability and family farm stability. Under the ag use policies, goal number 2, emphasize the importance of animal ag to the county economy. As you mentioned, we need folks carving up the animals we're raising.
Yep.
And then I'll leave it to other folks if they have one they want to add.
Yeah, there's more, but you covered my favorites. So thank you, Jason. Number 3, is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, it's been there for 3 years, so I would say yes.
Yep, I would agree with you on that. All right. And number 4, has the applicant demonstrated the standards and criteria stated that the stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
Yes. He's doing proper disposals, got the holding tank, has worked with the county on other issues.
Yep. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah.
And Mr. Chair, we have the 2 conditions that will go along with this conditional use permit.
To make sure state compliance is met. Thank you, Jason and Jeff. And then any other issues pertinent to this matter?
The township hasn't, I don't think, said anything on this one specifically, but has given a permit, so obviously they're aware of it, support it. Traffic generation is minimum.
Yeah. It's existed too, and it's gone well. So I think that's pertinent. It's been doing this for 20 years, and there's been no issues. So, all right, unless there's anything else, motion would be in order.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move, recommend approval of the county board for their March 22nd meeting to recommend approval.
Thank you, Jeff. Motion
I will
made.
second that.
We'll go with Rich. Thank you, Phil. Second made by Rich. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. All right. So Al, thank you for making the drive in, and this will go in front of the county board next week.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
That wasn't even fun. I didn't get to argue.
That's right.
We are well trained.
Thank you, Al. All right, we've got a little echo. Cool. quick check. Once that's resolved, we'll move on. Hybrids kill me. It is.
Getting a slot. Did you get your date to bring the deer in?
I would've been leery, but I knew the barn.
If I shoot one early, I gotta get it cooled down.
Yeah. Pretty convenient.
Oh, yeah.
All right, it sounds like we've got that resolved. So we'll move on to agenda item number 3. And that is the applicant is requesting an interim use permit to operate a vacation home rental in the residential 1 zoning district in accordance with section 4.18, 6.62, and 9.9.6A of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439. The applicant is requesting the permit for the vacation private home rental be valid for 3 years. The proposal is located on Lot 9, Leshes Pearl Lake Shore Lots in Section 11, lying east of Pearl Lake and west of Dairywood Road, Main Prairie Township. The property address is 18653 Dairywood Road in Kimball. Are the applicants with us? Okay, go ahead, come on up. All right, good evening. And would you mind, Kelsey, I'm assuming? All right, Kelsey, would you mind just stating your full name and address for the record?
Sure. Kelsey Gregalko. Address in consideration is 18653 Dairywood Road in Kimball.
Okay, and you, actually, where your actual residence is?
We reside in Albertville, so 10412 Cali Avenue Northeast, and that's Albertville.
Okay, cool,
Minnesota.
thank you. All right. I'm trying to find my sheet again. I'm getting a little out of control here tonight. With that, we can move on to the staff report, though. I know
right.
that's next.
All right, so this is for an interim use permit for a vacation home rental. The applicant is requesting the permit be valid for 3 years. The lot size is just over 16,000 square feet. The property is zoned residential 1, and it's located on Dairywood Road, which is a privately maintained road. Feedlot setbacks are met. There's no wetland concerns. This is within the shoreline overlay district of Pearl Lake, which is a recreational development lake. The surrounding area is residential lakeshore lots that are zoned residential 1, and then there's also property to the west or to the east and south. That's wetland and agricultural land. Pearl Lake is to the west. There's approximately 40 residential dwellings and no registered feedlots within a half mile of the property. The 2 closest homes are approximately 20 and 25 feet from the proposed rental home. The septic has been certified, and a water test for nitrates and coliform bacteria show that the water meets the state requirements. This is a 4-bedroom home, and based off of the size of the bedrooms and the septic system, their occupancy will be limited to 9 people. 3 off-street parking spaces are required for the 9-person occupancy. The septic was certified on September 29th of 2020. A flow measurement device is required to be installed. They're not renting out an RV. They're not proposing any new screening or fencing. The noise standards from Minnesota rules is required to be met. The licensee shall keep a record of who uses the home, rents the home, and they are required to get a lodging license from the department prior to renting the home. Our environmental health staff have been out on site and have done an inspection of the home already. The property is in the concentrated development area on the future land use map. Proposed conditions for this: the Planning Commission set a date or event upon which the IUP would expire. They're requesting 3 years, so we've suggested December 31st of 2025. Maximum occupancy and advertising of the vacation home rental shall be 9 people. The applicant shall obtain a lodging license from Environmental Services prior to renting the home. A flow measurement device is required for the septic system prior to issuing a lodging license. The licensee shall keep a report detailing use of the home and recording the name, address, phone number, and vehicle license number of all guests using the property. A ring buoy attached to a 3/16-inch manila rope, not over 60 feet in length, is required near the shore as life-saving equipment. All local zoning requirements must be complied with prior to licensure. A survey showing 3 9-foot by 20-foot parking spots outside of the road right-of-way shall be submitted prior to issuance of a lodging license. And the garage shall be available for parking unless there are 3 parking spots meeting the ordinance requirements outside of the garage. No vehicles, trailers, boats shall be parked within the road right-of-way or on the traveled road surface. And that's all I have until the public comment portion.
All right. Thanks, Heidi. Before I forget this time, I'm going to get to the members and staff that visited the site. So Sean, we'll start with you again.
Yes.
All right. Jeff?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
All right. I was able to visit the site. Rich?
Yep.
Mike?
Yep.
Yes.
Rich and Joe. And then Heidi?
Yep.
All right. Perfect. There we go. So with that, is there anything, Kelsey, that you want to add to the staff report?
Yeah, no, I just want to clarify, just kind of in terms of some of the stuff that has been submitted, et cetera. My husband and I purchased a property in fall of 2020, so it would be late. I think, remember it well, because I was due about a month later with my son. And knowing that this was a place we wanted to spend as a family. This was not purchased in any way to be a business, and it will never be a business. This is our second home. We take very big pride in that. And making sure that, but this is a place we want to grow. We planned on being there for a very long time to let our kids basically grow up at the lake, just like, I remember doing as a kid. Yeah, we're applying for the 3-year license, really to be able to share the place with other families that may not be able to purchase a place, something like that. And also just the idea of renting the short term for us is really, like we said, short term within a 3-year kind of plan. Mainly until our kids are old enough to be able to be away from home a little bit longer. I have a 4 and a 1-year-old, so being away from dad is a little bit, or just being away from home is a little bit more difficult when you have toddlers. But knowing from that, looking into the future, 3 years from now, it'll be a perfect place to basically live all summer.
All right. Very good. Any questions for the applicant before we move on, or staff, I guess, before we move on to the public hearing? All right. Hearing none. Is anyone here from the public that wants to state? Okay, you can come on up to the podium here. We usually try to keep comments to 2 minutes or less, so hopefully that works for you. And then if you can start by stating your name and address for the record.
Committee and commission. Are you ready? Now? By Tearaway 21417 Forest Hill Road, Richmond, Minnesota. Staff, committee, and commissioners, I've got 3 points to make tonight. One is I oppose vacation rentals in residential districts R1. Because our neighborhoods, vacation rentals are essentially a resort, unsupervised in our neighborhoods. They do not fit the comprehensive plan. Rural business policy number 1, rural business should not alter the rural character of the neighborhood and should not create negative impacts to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the adjacent property owners. Number 2, why is this permit even being considered at this point? Obviously, it's been rented out for some amount of time, a year or better, without a permit. So it seems like there should at least be a waiting period to issue a permit for something like this. Otherwise, why even have permits if it's not an issue? Is there any penalty for renting without a permit? Number 3, look at the lot. 16,000 square feet. There's a couple buildings on it. There's a garage, there's a house. And look at the adjacent properties. They're right next door. Where are the people supposed to go that rent the place? I notice on the application, there's no plan for screening. Again, look at the neighbors. What do they got to deal with here? To me, common sense would suggest this is not a property for vacation rental. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, is there anyone else? All right.
Hello?
Anything? Oh, yes, we have someone online. We have Teresa, if you want to start first, you can go ahead. And then we'll come back to whoever's online.
Okay, Teresa Bransner, 21044 Elkview Circle, Richmond. Chairman Crone and board, I've been here before. And I am opposed also to the short-term vacation rentals for many reasons. She stated that they bought the property and they're looking to not make money off of it, so why are you renting it? And she did state also that she's maybe wanting to share it with people that would like to enjoy the lake. So I think what happens is a lot of that starts out that way, and it just grows from there. But also, I have a question as to where are you at in the process with the ordinances being changed within the county and the county commissioners? I know you're working on them, and I don't know where you're at in that process, but you're allowing some of these. So if you're allowing them, do they have to adhere to the current ordinance regulations, or will they be subject to the new ones that are coming in? I don't know if that's even something that's considered. And the other thing is I was down in Arizona, so I had some experience or some different situations where I talked to neighbors about the short-term vacation rentals. They're coming to Minnesota because they see the lakes. I live on the lake, and I know a lot of other people do too, and we appreciate our lakes. And I have no problem sharing the lakes, but I also don't agree with changing up the neighborhoods on the lakes, and every neighborhood is different. This one, I think, when I look at the map, I think she's only, or there's maybe one on that lake. You may be the first one. In my neighborhood, there were 2, and now we've been standing up trying to say, hey, you got to look at each neighborhood individually. The transiency in the neighborhoods is not, as far as we're concerned as neighbors, compliant with the comprehensive plan. The density that's being allowed in a lot of areas is a problem that people are running into. And I know this is just one on that lake, but throughout the country, when you look at it, there's a lot of things that are happening. The other main issue that's concerning me now, and this came up in Arizona, one of the cities did pass in their ordinance that the homeowner has to also do a background check for sex offenders, because there are laws out there that state that certain level sex offenders, you have to notify the communities in which they're moving into. So this opens the door for possible sexual offenders coming into our neighborhoods. And the reason that concerns me is my daughter was almost abducted years ago by a sex offender, and who later went on to murder somebody. And the reason that we knew he was somebody that didn't belong in the neighborhood is because we recognized him. He was not a neighbor. He was driving around. He was looking for somebody to pick up. I'm thankful that we had a German Shepherd that time, which stopped him from getting her. And he went on that night to abduct Melissa Johnson and murdered her down the road. So that is a concern for me, is the sex offender thing. So I don't know if that's an issue that the county is going to look into, but you're bringing these rental units into our neighborhoods. They are residential neighborhoods. They're not rental neighborhoods. And so that's where my opposition is. And I also would like to know where we're at in the process. And then also, one other question I have is, how long has notification of residents been within a quarter mile? And Angie, maybe you could answer that question. I mean, usually you notify the residents within a quarter mile, or is it, I think it used to be a mile, wasn't it?
Yeah, go ahead, Angie.
Mr. Chair, Teresa, so for conditional use permits and interim use permits, it's always been a quarter mile.
Okay.
Rezonings and plats are a half a mile, and that's by state law.
Okay, because the other issue that I run into when I talk to neighbors is they don't know they're happening until they're right on top of them. I've had a lot of conversations with neighbors, and they don't even know it, but they will say, is that why all of a sudden we're seeing all these different people showing up every weekend, and we're having all this going on in our neighborhoods? And they find out after the fact. So I don't think it's out there fully. We're trying to get a hold of some of the neighbors, but there's just a lot of issues, and I hope that you as a Planning and Zoning Commission do the research, cover them, present them to the county, and I'm hoping that, because I'm not totally against them, I'm just saying that look out, because there's areas that they are overwhelming, and a lot of counties and cities are trying to backpedal to fix the problem. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, and I know there was someone on the line as well that wanted to chime in, so if you're there, if you can jump in here quick, state your name and address for the record.
I am here, Anthony Segali, at 18693 Dairywood Road, 3 houses down from this proposed permit. I also oppose this application. I have 5 points I'd like to make very quickly. The first thing is that they've been operating for at least a year and a half. And so we've had a chance to look and see what some of the issues are. As their website says, it's Sacred Shores Lodge. It's a lodge. It's not a residential home that they're sharing. It doesn't really fit with residential lake lot. The way that it's advertised is, who comes and for what purpose? They say come and have big fishing weekends or ski weekends or family gatherings or events. In fact, we had 20 to 25 women there with a bachelorette party, and they were all having a great time. Neighbors weren't, but they were. It's just an opportunity to party with no rules and no supervision. And then the second point is, in their ad, it says pet friendly. Well, yeah, I'm the one that's picking dog manure off my beach because dog friendly means they just run and, they're not responsible. There's nobody responsible. And then I know the septic system has been warranted for 9 people. Lake quality is very important to the DNR and the Lake Association that we're assigned to, but they're advertising sleep till 12. Well, that probably will change if they get a permit because it doesn't allow that. The septic system certainly barely would meet 9 people, and then of course all their guests. I don't know how the septic would work in that. The fourth point I'd like to make, and that is this private road. They have to take a private road to get there, which is maintained by all the residents. And this private road is, it doesn't have any size to it, or their lot has very little size, 60 foot, limited space for parking. The balance of what they're parking is left to the neighbors and private roads that they use. They have boats, ATVs, trailers, and these are things that I'm not just making up. We've seen it. They've been operating for a year and a half. Cars, trucks, they just bring their recreational equipment from home and they think this is a playground. The last point, and I think it's probably the most important point, is safety. I have witnessed people in their boats, and we got small kids on the beach and they are just tearing around. Well, nobody supervises them and the owner is not there. And so whether it's a boat or an ATV or a snowmobile, I think there's some real problems. And it's a small lot. It doesn't even accommodate how they fit on it. So with that, I'll close. It just doesn't fit with a residential neighborhood. It's a business. It's certainly not to be just shared with friends. It's according to their ad and the way they've operated in the last year and a half, it's a business. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Anthony. All right. Is there anyone else online that wants to chime in on the public hearing? All right. Hearing none. I guess yeah, you've got some more correspondence, Heidi, if you want to read that into the record.
Yep, I received several emails and letters, so I'll summarize those now. You guys all have copies of those at your spots. Carl and Kimberly Halverson, their concerns include safety and security, no community investment, impact to property value and increase in taxes, lake health, negative experience with this property being rented already. Anthony Sigali, already renting property, issues with cars, boats, RVs, and trailers, parking on the road, large groups, private road maintained by homeowners. Robert and Patricia Herder, their comments included having experienced both normal and annoying days with the renters. They'll be satisfied if the adjacent landowner concerns are resolved. Dean Stockinger, concerns with traffic increase, narrow roads, excessive noise, increase in lake traffic and noise. Russ and Linda Miller, concerns include safety. There's a narrow road, vehicles parked on road, increased number of vehicles, speeding boat traffic, environmental, trash on property and beach, dog feces, imposition, noise late at night, houses 10 feet from their patio, narrow property, so renters encroach on neighboring properties, maintenance of private road, property has been rented for over a year with no permit, discrepancy in advertisement regarding occupancy. Bruce and Levon Fredrickson, concerns include parking, road maintenance, increase in traffic, impact to community and use of the lake. Ron and Pat Thompson, private road, additional wear and tear from renters, limited parking, no lake access for launching boats on the property, narrow lot, renters use neighboring property, noise from large groups. Irene Abbott, noise, strangers in the area, traffic and safety. Dwayne and Cheryl Fruth, private one-lane road, increased traffic and speeding. And that's all that I received.
All right. Thanks, Heidi. Before we move into a motion to close the public hearing, Kelsey, is there anything that you wanted to just comment on?
I'm happy and glad to know, I guess, the concerns. We had rented it out in the last year. I guess I'm here today because I was unaware that that was something that we weren't allowed to do. I think the ladies can testify. As soon as I was told that this was something you needed to apply for, I complied and I've gone through the process. And so that's, I guess, what I'm here for today is now knowing that that was something that we were not able to do with our private property. That's why we're here. Just in terms of some of the things that were brought up, I'd say I don't think any of us do anything perfect the first time we do anything. So, looking back on it, and a lot of this is back on me. I am responsible as the owner for the people that come to use our place. That's 100% on me. I don't have an ability to do background checks. I completely understand the terms of safety. I have 2 children of my own that, trust me, there's nothing I wouldn't do to protect them. But also knowing, my family in general, we grew up in the cabin was where family met. So when we're at the cabin, usually it's grandma and grandpa. We have aunts and uncles, cousins. So there's a lot of us that do gather there, whether it's a vacation rental or not. And in terms of any kind of trailers, I can tell you right now, that is our personal use. My husband brings his trailer every time we go up there. It's got his snowmobile in there. It's got all of his fishing gear in there. So him and my daughter go out and they go fishing. So all these things, I completely hear the concerns. I understand the concerns. But I am an open book, and I am someone where I feel like I'm a very approachable person. If there's a concern, I want to know about it. And if there's something that happens, please, I'd be happy to give anyone in our area my personal contact information to make sure things like that don't happen. I can't babysit the property, and that's just something, if I'm there on a vacation, I don't want someone babysitting me. But it is my responsibility, and I had provided in the past house rules in terms of what time is quiet time, what is allowed to happen on or off the property. If this were to happen, it's an immediate type of dismissal. So things like, we are in control as property or as owners of a short-term rental. We are in control of all of that. So that would be on me to provide very clear, concise rules in terms of if you're going to use the property, this is what needs to happen. And I would hope that anyone, if they were not complying, again, I'd be happy to give that to any of the neighbors in the area to make sure, because this is not, I wouldn't want some, random parties to be happening. And that's not the intent of it. And I apologize if that's what had happened. But this is the first time hearing of it. So.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. With not seeing anyone else online or in the room, motion would be in order to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
All right. Thanks, Sean.
Second?
All right. Seconded by Jason. Thank you. All those in favor to close the public hearing, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. So moved. Any other discussion or questions by members before we move into the findings of fact?
Mr. Chairman, can Angie or Heidi respond to the question about where we are in the process of looking at the ordinance from the county perspective?
Mr. Chair, Member Bertram, the department put together that comparison for you. I think you did that last month. I was not here. And that was not taken up by the commissioners at this time. We have not been given any direction from our county board to talk about a moratorium, talk about ordinance changes. So I would say we're in abeyance at this point until we're given direction from our commissioners, or unless and until the planning commission gives clear direction to a recommendation to the commissioners, because my understanding is that did not happen either.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And I know some of the comments that were made at the last meeting were that a lot of this stuff, it would be good to keep driving it at the township level where people's voices are can be heard the most. And then with some of that, the townships bringing recommendations back to the county as far as what changes to be made. If you look at the data, at least as far as incident reports that come in to the county in checking, there really has been, I think, one complaint, formal complaint that's been validated in the years. And if I'm misunderstanding that, that's something we need to look into more too, but there just hasn't been a lot of documentation of issues. So thank you, Angie, and thanks for the question, Jeff. I don't know, Joe, is there anything else that's been discussed at the county board level?
Yes and no. It's become an issue, obviously, for us, and it's become an issue for the board as well, because, the number of complaints we see and people showing up here, and we're at a position where, when it was one or two, it wasn't much of an issue. But now that we see a good numbers, filling up onto a lake, we're seeing the moratoriums from the township. So I don't think the discussion is done. I think it's something that we're going to have to look at. I think one step that we've done is, rather than go with the 5 and 10 year leases or permits, we're going to a standard 3 year. It is a probationary period. I mean, that seems to be one direction that we're going. But I don't think the discussion is over. I think you may have alluded to that we've been pushing some of this over to the townships. I think that's perhaps maybe the better way to go, to let them control what they want, their township to look like, and maybe even some of the lake associations to weigh in on it. Because there's a good argument, and we've had the argument here on both sides. Mm-hmm. The opportunities for families to come out and enjoy those recreational areas, but by the same token, preservation of neighborhoods. And we're butting heads with that. We're having a quasi discussion, I think, here and also at the board. Have we set a deadline where we're gonna come up with new material? I don't think yet.
Right.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
but I think the conversation is going to continue. Angie, one thing that Ms. Branson brought up, and that is with the notification of up to a quarter mile. You know, I think we've seen that on a number of issues too, that there are people outside that quarter mile that really feel they're impacted. And that's the state statute, correct? For notification of it?
Mr. Chair, yes, Commissioner Persky, and that was brought up during our last ordinance revision about, probably 16, 18 months ago. And the committee, you all and the county board decided at that time to leave it at the state requirement and encourage people to sign up for meetings on demand and check the paper. And yes, so we're meeting our minimum obligation.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Well, and I think the last thing I'd just add to it is that it is something that's definitely popping up as there are more of these. We're getting a lot more opinions, which is a good thing. I think one thing to keep in mind, at least from a planning commission perspective, I believe is one of the public comments actually tonight, someone stated it, that, you know, it really comes down to the individual applicant, and we really have to look at each application on its own. It's not just a blanket policy. So, I mean, that's really how we have to approach each of them, and we'll continue to do that until something else would change.
Mr. Chairman, the question was also asked if something were to change, if this permit would be affected by the new
right,
or not.
yeah.
It would be the current standards that this permit, if it was granted, would be under. And if there are changes, that would be for future. So just informational, the question was asked, that's the answer.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to say that I'm not going to 100% say that that's the case anymore. Under state law, there are some different options for counties or cities or townships to choose differently on that. And so I hate to disagree with you, Jeff, but
Go ahead.
that's
I just wanted somebody to answer the question, and nobody did, so I guess I stand corrected then. We may go back.
Okay.
Never has happened here in Stearns County that I'm aware of, but it might. But it's the old standards right now.
So to summarize, is this fair in saying, generally speaking, it does not change. However, there might be certain situations that there would be retroactive conditions that could apply after the fact, Angie?
Mr. Chair, yes, in a roundabout way, if that's what the county board would choose to include in the ordinance, should they want to change the ordinance. So let's
Okay.
just say, for example, the board says we want all of these new vacation home rental rules, or we want less, or whatever the situation is. The state law regarding interim uses says that they can, it doesn't say the word retroactive, but yes, it's possible that they could choose that the new rules could apply to existing applications or even null and void existing applications. And Jeff's 100% right. It's never happened before.
Okay.
Interim use permits are, everything usually runs with the land, and your permit rights are what you are granted. But I'll say that there is a caveat that was brought to our attention by one of the township attorneys recently. So we're learning on some of these things. So.
Well, good. Thanks for sharing, because I didn't know that was there either.
And then, Mr. Chairman, if somebody's keeping track, if there is some changes proposed or whatever, I think a couple of things that came up that made sense for me. The pet-friendly issue, you know, if we are encouraging or allowing pets, you know, what do we do to keep them on the property? Because again, in a homeowner situation, you could have the invisible fencing or, you know, a fence or something. If you're coming for a week, you know, and that resident doesn't have it, so that's a legitimate question that was brought up. Sex predators, yep, we have them in hotel rooms, and of course they're there for a night or two. You don't know. They're transient. And again, rentals are transient. I don't know what they do in apartments and stuff, to be honest with you. Obviously, if you become a sexual predator over a certain level, the community's made aware. But if you're under that level, you're not. And if you're transient, it's really hard. You know, so that's a good suggestion on all of them if we're going to make some changes. And then the private road issue. If they are on a private road and suddenly traffic goes from, you know, 10, 20 a week to 30 a week or something, that's a legitimate question to be addressed at some point if we deal with these. The real reason we're dealing with these guys is there's 22 total. I counted or at least I'm going to say from what I counted, just in case I'm wrong, there's 22 on this list. 18 of them happened since 2015. 9 of them happened since 20. So obviously that's why it's kind of exploded. And you're right, there's only been a couple of issues, but quite frankly, I think this is happening so fast that people don't know what they can do. We saw townships in here that didn't know that they could do a moratorium. Now, 2 of them have and 1 has done something else. So, but they've acted. And of course, right now it's only happening around lakes. The chances this is going to happen in rural townships probably are slim, because if it was on a farm site, those issues would be less of an issue. You're not living right beside each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
But to that point, I think there's really good points all around, and I think this will continue to be discussed. The more that it can be done and vetted out at the township level, the better chance the county has to make good decisions as far as how to maybe change some of that ordinance language.
And I think we should be the leaders, really. I mean, I feel for the townships, they're really not positioned, like we are. I mean, we pretty much do all the zoning and planning in most of the townships. Yep, it's a cafeteria plan, I get that, but solar's another one. I mean, they didn't know they had that, and they should know, yep, but again, that doesn't mean that they do know. So, but we really should be the ones to help them set standards that will prevent issues for the county, for the townships, for the residents, for the visitors. You can't just come into a hotel room or a rental home in any city and just have a free-for-all. The cop's going to be there.
Yeah, fair.
All right. Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
The applicant had said that she didn't know that they needed to get this. Now, I guess this is for the staff. We've tried over the last year or 2 years, you've sent out notifications to every property owner. We put ads, what do we need to do so all the property owners with lake property know that if they want to rent it out, they need to do this.
We're going to keep trying all the things that you just suggested, but there's no class that you have to take before you buy property. We are now just joining in with our auditor treasurers in a weekly letter that they send to all new property owners in the county. We're going to have a half sheet in there that talks about rentals, that talks about shoreline, that talks about wetlands. We're going to keep trying in new ways. Letters aren't always the way of the future either. So we're always open to suggestions.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Is there a way to just inform the realtors in the area that work maybe specifically in, because I know I specifically asked both of the realtors I had worked with, and neither of them said it would be, no, it would never be, that shouldn't be an issue. No, that's a good idea.
We've brought that up, haven't we, Angie?
So,
that the realtors
and what do you think that realtor's trying to do at that time?
well, I understand.
They're trying to
make
sell
a
your
deal.
property.
But my realtor as well would have been
Right.
very honest with me, if that's something that, this is the process you need to go through.
Got it.
I don't think that, it would have left a bad taste in anyone's mouth if they wouldn't have told, if they would have said, hey, Kels, if this is something you want to do, here's the process to do it. And I would have been happy to do that.
Yeah.
God bless the realtors, but I mean, they're not going to do anything negative that's going to, we had homes in Painesville that the water pressure was diminished, and they were told to reveal that to the new home buyer, never said a word. And the new homeowner buys the property, finds out the water pressure is 20 pounds, and then they come to the city, they want to fix. Well, realtor's long gone by then. So I think letting property know, I always bring this up in the planning committee meeting. We had a planning committee meeting yesterday. We put these conditions on, or they have to maintain the road, or they have to do a basin. Well, if you buy the lot, these are people that own the land, and it's platted, and then now you buy that plat, boy, if you read that entire abstract, God bless you, because most people don't. Should they? Yep. And of course, when they want to start building or something, some of that will be shuffled out, but the reality of it is people don't pay attention to that level. And
the big thing is you can send letters out to people. They don't read the letters. You can put it in every paper. They don't read newspapers anymore. Yeah. So I was going to say our lake associations could take care of it, but they do no more than send out a letter or try to contact the people. And
It's one of those, yeah.
it's,
Good
I got
point, Ken.
I got a registered letter in the mail the other day about some soybean seed I bought. My wife said, why would they send that out? I said, just to clear the company so that they told everybody about the new rules on this bag of soybeans. So do we need to send a registered letter out to everybody? That still doesn't make them read the letter. They just have to sign that they received the letter.
Yeah.
So it's really getting to be hard to, this is the common thing. Well, we didn't know, but everyone is, we didn't know that. But what are we going to do about it?
All right.
Mr. Chairman, the last question I have for the applicant is, you named the property, someone brought that up. Just what's your reaction to that?
That's just a, you know, most people name a place that, you know, you allow other people, excuse me, allow other people to go to. And for us, that was, you know, Sacred Shores is a symbolic name. I guess in terms of the experience, I would want anybody to come, whether it's a friend or a renter. They step on the property, I want it to be a sacred experience. Excuse me. So that's the name of it.
Got it.
That's just what we've called it.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, sure.
Kelsey, I've got this email from Jane Knott with these lists of things that need to be fixed or changed. I want to make sure that we address those things.
Sure. I'll go through that.
I just want to make sure, I don't know, are some of these things, Angie, things that should be itemized in recommended conditions, like upgrading the windows and things like that?
Mr. Chair, Member Blackburn, so part of this process, this is for the land use part, and then the food, beverage, and lodging license will not be issued until all of those things are done. And so we do this ahead of time now, just so property owners are aware of what they might need to change in case they don't want to change it. So no need to make a special condition with these, because I think we might, do we say something, Heidi, about must meet FBL?
Well, yeah, we state that the lodging license is required.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, building on that question, just a high-level discussion. So what's in a lodging license? So we do the conditional use permit. What's covered under the lodging license?
Mr. Chair, Member Wienerman, very generally, and this is just from memory, and we can certainly have a summary put together for you, but it's smoke detectors, water test, water pressure, water temperature, window size, as Sean indicated, you know, for ingress, egress.
So the physical characteristics of the
Right, it's all safety, health and safety.
Septic.
Did I say smoke detectors?
Yep.
Fire extinguishers. I mean, Kelsey could probably attest, it's a lot, and I don't want to extend this meeting, but actually what a lot of counties are going to is allowing these by right, by permit, not an interim use, and only requiring the lodging license. So they're focusing on the health safety part and allowing the land use to be a permitted by right. I'm not advocating for that. I'm saying that's one of the things I think that was presented last month, but if you do ever want more information or just want us to send you some information from the FBL, we could certainly do that so you have an idea of what that looks like.
And Mr. Chairman, there was a lot of counties that were more restrictive on that spreadsheet that we had from last month, which was really helpful, by the way. But I couldn't believe how restrictive. And then when I started looking at the counties, more lakes, it really swirls around lakes right now.
Mr. Chair, I think that I asked the same question a couple months ago, and we went, nobody can lose their license to have a rental home just because of any of these issues. That's what, a couple months ago, I asked the same question. They can just, these are things that they can correct.
Mr. Chair, a question for the applicant. So we had somebody come to our last meeting who was going through the process, had their parcel listed on VRBO, or whatever the site was, and was surprised to find that the site was picking their own residency limits. So rather than having the 6 units that we had required, VRBO was like, oh, you've got 6 bedrooms, so you can have 8 people in it. So just be aware that we do have the 9 limit.
No, I agree.
And
Understood.
they,
And they do,
buyer
they
beware.
do that just, and even being, I've rented from that site, from those, I should say, applications numerous times.
Yeah.
And yes, but now, I'm 100% here to be as compliant as possible.
Oh, yeah, I just
So I'm
keep
I'm
an
more
eye
than
on it,
happy to
so-
change any of that, but yes, you're right. That's kind of based on what I had put in.
Yeah.
Because they asked like how many rooms, and then you put in there's a queen bed here and there's a king, so it automatically calculated, which is why I had initially come up with, okay, there's 12. But no, completely understand didn't think about the steward part of it, so yes.
just something to be aware of
Yes,
going
thank you.
forward.
I don't know if they all do it, Mr. Chairman, but some of those sites, they ask you what you thought of the stay. And then the people that own the property does do a review on the,
Renter.
so could be helpful to require that, because if you do allow some of these in some of the areas, and then, that homeowner does a bad review on who stayed there because they did things they weren't supposed to do, whichever these associations are, everybody else will hear that and they'll say, we're not renting to them. So that might be a way to help take care of that. Did anybody answer the parking question, by the way? I see the diagram and everything, and it says the garage has to be used as parking, but because of what Jason just said, it reminded me of the 9 and then the parking. So how do we accommodate the parking?
Mr. Chair, so with the 9-person occupancy, they need to have 3 off-street outside of the right-of-way parking spaces. So we are requiring a survey to be done to show that they have room for 3 off-street parking spaces. And by my measurements, without a survey, it looks like the garage will need to be used as one of those parking spaces in order to get 3. So that was why the one condition was proposed to have a survey done, and then a second condition that the garage be available, unlocked and available for parking if they don't have 3 available spaces outside of the garage.
So how do we come up, I'm just curious, how do we come up with 9 people, 3 parking spots?
The
Is that a
ordinance
3,
requires, the
1/3?
parking standards require 1 parking spot per 3 people.
Because we have a group of friends of 6 that I swear to God, they all drive separate. The husband and wife, nobody can drive together anymore. So I'm just wondering how we come to 3, because it might be more than that, but.
All right, any other discussion by
The only
members?
discussion I would like, I think it would help if, one of the conditions would be, a sign or whatever with contact info. So if the neighbors or somebody did have questions or concerns, that they'd know who to contact, rather than just contacting law enforcement.
Okay, and I think, so there's a, part of the ordinance or rules is no signs, but I think we could put that into a condition in the form of like neighbors within X amount be notified with contact info, Mike, or something along those lines. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe there could be a sign, but I thought there was
I
something.
know we did that one vacation rental that we asked them to put up some kind of a sign so they could find their way. It was a kind of a convoluted directions for the site.
Right.
I think it's just because it's in the ordinance right now. I don't know that not having a sign is necessarily a good thing. I think if you recognize that property as a vacation home rental, then if you are walking and somebody said they thought, well, what's that car doing? I mean, was it Tearaway? I think you said it. The car was going around. Well, if you go to that, oh, they must be one of the rentals. Well, that would alert people. And then if you would have a sign identifying it as a vacation home rental with a phone number, if problems, contact and have a phone, it might alleviate some problems. Because we all assume, not everybody's as outgoing as Commissioner Persky, where you're going to walk up to a homeowner and say, do you own a home? Or they'll just walk by, complain, have a problem, and then there's a phone number, they might call. I don't know. Again, just because it's not in the ordinance, doesn't mean it can't be in the ordinance.
Well, and we can make it a condition too, right? I mean, as part of
I
any
don't
of
know.
these.
I don't know if
I
we
just,
could
we'd
allow
have to,
signs.
Messing with the can of worms, we're talking about posting people's private information out in the open for whoever. That's another different thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if people have problems, they can call the cops, just like always, just like everywhere else.
all right, so, yeah,
Yeah, I have one item that you might be interested in, and that is, as we walked around the lodge or whatever you want to call it, and I assume I'm gonna call it the north side of the building where there's a deck and then there's an entrance. That's main entrance.
Yep.
Okay. The adjoining property owner's concerned about loss of privacy because so many people
Sure.
in the last year and a half.
Yep.
And that's the side of their home that their bedroom is located. And so you got the noise and you got the lack of privacy and whatever. We can't require it, but if this gets approved, it might be going a long ways on repairing things with that adjoining property owner, having some kind of screen between your property and their
Yeah,
home.
and as you guys had said, actually, so on the opposite side, where it's not as close, all of those arborvitaes are brand new. We actually put those in last year or last fall to provide privacy from, and, you know, visibly and from a noise perspective, even just for our own personal sake
Sure.
and for the neighbors. So I'd be more than happy to work with the other neighbors as well. They had commented on how beautiful that they were. The only reason we haven't done anything on that side is just because of how close the property line is, and it's impossible to plant anything without crossing it. So if that's something that they would prefer us to do, that's not easily a conversation we
So,
can have.
yeah, discuss it with them and
Yep.
see what can be worked out.
Yeah,
if
because
this
I'm
was a
again,
date place, yes.
it'd be a positive, I think, for everyone just to have something. But yes, I'd be more than happy. It's just wasn't as easy to figure out how to plant with the property line.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, related to Richard's comment, so the Planning Commission does have the option to place conditions related to screening and related to fencing. Now, depending on how close to the lake, certain size and height fences are not, privacy fences, if you will, 100% opaque is not allowed. But I just wanted to be clear that you do have the option to require fencing and screening on a particular line or the whole property or part of the property. So that's one of the things that you could do.
Okay, thanks.
thank you, Angie. All right, any other discussion items or clarifications we want to do before going to finding of fact?
Mr. Chair, I have one, and I'll yield to anybody else that wanted to have anything else to say before that.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. Angie, can you pull up page 62? It's a picture of the property in relation to the question relates back to Member Bertram had mentioned it, and so did the other members, and that's with the private road coming off of the public road, and I think that's okay. That's not it. Yeah, on mine, on my computer, it's page 62. Yeah, you're one more. There it is. If you see up to where the road narrows down, you see how the arrow coming down? Come on down with that arrow. And then the road basically ends, and then it switches to a private road. Does that become an issue? You know, in the previous discussion item that we had, the first one, you know, we talked about them putting a cul-de-sac because for emergency vehicles. Well, now you've got a rental property, and it's not a private home anymore, so you're having the public come down there. Is there an issue for emergency vehicles?
Who tends to the road is the question.
That would be
It'd
the
be
question. And do you guarantee, is it going to be plowed? And we've had this, I think, in another issue as well. So does that become a condition that you know, the road has to be cleared with snow?
Yeah, and that private road, is it built to township standards or?
Has it
Is
built
it
the
just big
standards
enough?
to accommodate emergency vehicles?
It's an enhanced driveway.
And I think when we had the issue with that in the Cold Spring area, we had testimony that it was accessible by emergency vehicles. So, but this one, I don't know if we had that information.
Mr. Chairman, it was the one in Collegeville Township, if I remember right, on Big Fish Lake. Somebody remember?
I remember
What I remember is when I drove down to do a site visit, it got to a point where I parked the Suburban and I walked the rest of the way, and I thought, how in the hell is an ambulance or a fire department truck gonna go down there? The trees were starting to scratch the sides of the Suburban. And I think it was in Collegeville Township, and it was I think it was Big Fish Lake, and yeah, the fire department surprisingly did come in, and I think there was a relationship issue there that they knew the applicant, but yeah, you really do cause some problems. Again, nobody expects that, and if you're a homeowner, so you have 1 or 2 or 3 people living in a home, well, suddenly you've got 9 people every week for a month. You know, that's 36 in Spring Hill, that was, if that's right, 4 times 9, 36 people in a month versus having 3 to 4 people there in a month. So you're increasing the potential need. And again, not just specifically for this one, certainly this one, but that's another one of those, hopefully somebody's taking notes on raising these issues when and if something does occur at the county board level.
Right. Thanks, Joe. All right. Sean, do you have anything before we go finding a fact?
I was going to ask Angie if she has any more clarification about the road there to help us with that.
Mr. Chair, Member Blackburn, so Jeff, that could have been the one on Big Fish, and there was also one on Elkview Circle. It was Ozzy, and I think it had come up in the letters from the public ahead of the meeting, so then I had conversations with
Chad and Eden Valley.
It was, yeah, and then also with Richmond, I think I talked to Tremmel as well. And the answer, I was trying to pull up the minutes of that meeting, but I'm not quick enough to find them. We ended up not adding any conditions onto that permit because, as someone stated, they came back saying, yes, we will get there. We may not get there with a big fire truck, but we'll get there with a smaller truck, or they gave a description about how they would, for health and safety
I
reasons.
think they were going to go across, because isn't that the one where you went down the steep hill?
And
by
then
Elkview,
cut.
and then it was about a 120-degree angle turn back up, and
So, and to your point, Jeff, that is something that some of the other local governments are doing, is requiring it to be a road maintained by the local government. So we are taking notes. We have written that down. To your point, Sean, if the Planning Commission wanted to start doing that on this application and requiring something related to that, we'd have to talk about what that would look like. Or the better way to do it would be not to try to figure it out tonight, but continue it. And then we would need to put our thinking caps on with the emergency personnel and find out what do we really mean by that. I don't know who maintains the road either. Kelsey, that could be a question for her. I'm assuming it's private landowners.
Well, we could make that a part of condition as well, I believe, right? If we just heard it tonight, if someone wanted to make that a condition one way or the other, that could be added, correct? That there is a emergency response or emergency plan inspection or something, validating that the property's accessible.
You
Right.
could, and I think they're going to say it is, because we all know they're going to get to you one way or another, and they're not going to let a house burn. It's the response time is the issue, and so it's the specific. That's what I'm saying. If you want to dip your toe into this, go all in, or I would suggest not doing it at all, because they're going to come back with something, and then we're not going to know as a department what to do with that something, because we're either then the permit can't be issued, but it already was issued. It gets kind of clumsy.
Okay.
when you live out in the country that far and you've got a volunteer fire department, by the time they get there, you might as well just let the house burn, because it's going to be burning already for a half an hour or more. It's not like living in the city where you got 5-minute response time.
And that applies to every house down that road, not just the rental.
Right.
It doesn't make a difference if it's a rental property or a
Right.
private home. It's, to me,
That's
it's the
right.
same standard. I don't know if we should raise the standard just because it turned into a rental property.
Right.
And Mr. Chairman, my concern would be the emergency, the ambulance, medical issue would be more of an issue than fire would be bad enough, but a medical issue, if you can't get on, then, you got a problem. You know, if you can't get there, and the difference between a homeowner, as I said earlier, and, one of these is you're dealing with 3, 4 people that live there maybe part-time versus 36 plus people that are there regularly. So that would be, in my mind, that would be the difference. And rather than doing it on this one applicant, again, I maybe misunderstood it. I was a few miles away from here last month in the Zoom meeting, but I thought all that discussion was going to lead to something, like a committee or something. And maybe I missed that. Maybe the waves were ringing in my ears or something. But if that wasn't the intent, I think that's really what we should do, rather than reacting one at a time, setting a bigger standard and being prepared for this and helping townships do the same and then be proactive and not reactive. That'd be my 2 cents.
Well, Jeff, let's table yours till the end here, or when we get to open discussion after this applicant, because it is something that should get ironed out here with the planning commission. So, okay, are we ready for finding of facts? We'll roll. So number 1, is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. It is, with the applicable sections being section 4.18, 6.62, and 9.9.6A of the County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439.
Thanks, Jason. All right, number 2, does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county? List the applicable sections.
Mr. Chair, Sean Blackburn, it does conform to the comprehensive plan. It's in the future land use map in a concentrated development area. And we're looking at our business goals, number 3, to acknowledge tourism's economic value and the prospective contribution of this industry.
All right.
Chairman, I say
Sean?
it does not conform to rural business policies. Number 1, rural businesses should not alter the rural character of the neighborhood, should not create negative impacts on the public health, safety, and general welfare of the adjacent property owners. And also under lakeshore living policies, I do not think it conforms with the project maintains the neighborhood's residential character by promoting compatible land uses that detract from this character should not be addressed through site design improvements or mitigation measures.
All right, thank you both, Sean and Jeff. All right, number 3, is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, Sean Blackburn, I'd say it's compatible with the existing neighborhood because they're not planning on making any major changes to anything. It's still just a house.
Okay.
And I'm sure, Mr. Chairman, that's why they put Sean beside me tonight. So I don't feel guilty, I'm gonna put I think it does change the character, because again, rather than 2, 3 people living in the house, you've got 36 plus people living in the house over a month's time.
Yep. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Number 4, how has the applicant demonstrated that standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman, we have the 9 conditions, which I would assume are going with the 3-year December 31st, 2025 deadline, plus the required upgrades to the lodging license.
All right.
On that note, I would like to recommend that we add a 10th condition, referring to the screening on the north property line.
Okay, and what would you like that, Sean?
I don't know what that should look like, but I would take suggestions from Kelsey.
As long as the adjacent neighbor is, I mean, we could do the same thing that we have done on the other side, or it could be shorter.
The arborvitaes, is that what you say? Yeah,
yep.
sure.
The only issue is because of the patio, it literally, like, there's probably 6 inches from the patio to the property line. So to plant anything on that main patio part obviously presents an
It's gonna be
issue unless
difficult.
we got some, I mean, we're talking giant planters, but that could obviously have an issue as well. It could tip over in wind. It does get windy on the lake. So something that obviously we could discuss further. We can change some of the landscape to provide more of a screen or more of a privacy effect.
All right, thank you. Do we need to take a vote on adding that as the 10th condition?
I would say, depending on the motion that's made, I mean, we could do it now or try to do it based upon the motion.
Mr. Chair, so again, I'm not trying to delay this application, but you're going to be leaving this all up to staff to determine the fencing or screening. Is it vegetation? Is it
Well, yeah, Angie, to that point, I think that should get clarified now. I would agree. I mean, tonight, whether that's like in the next 30 seconds or in like the next few minutes, I'm cool. But Sean, on the screening side,
I don't know that this was a concern that Rich
Yeah.
brought up from the neighbors, so I wanted to address that.
So-
And now,
Screening could also be some kind of architecturally well-designed fence. And we're restricted, 6 feet in height?
So, Mr. Chair, I guess what I'm trying to say is if you want to add fencing or screening conditions, I think this item should be continued.
Okay.
So we can work with the applicant. We can have them stake the property line with a surveyor. We can look at our ordinance and identify what do we allow that far back from the lake. And again, the burden is on the applicant to show why they should get the permit. And so what we would say to Kelsey is what we heard the planning commission say is there should be some fencing or screening on the north line. Here's what the ordinance allows you to do. Come back with a proposal next month and show it to the planning commission. And then we're not trying to design that tonight. That gets uncomfortable and we can make mistakes that way, including staff, because we don't have all of our information here.
Mr. Chairman, or we could say screening in general, because again, rather than do it on this one, we're gonna have one of these every month. And again, it gets back to my point, the townships are smarter than us in doing the moratorium so that they can get things in order and then bring it back. So again, I think it behooves the county, we've got issues, and I'd rather not deal with this one applicant at a time when we've got the influx that we've had. Let's deal with this on the overall approach, but in order to do that, we have to take a deep breath to do that. So I would, for now, if it's amenable, I would say, let's just say screening, and we don't have to get specific. She got the message, neighbor, I don't know what's gonna happen anyway. If she doesn't, quite frankly, license isn't gonna be taken away, we heard that. So I don't know that we have to be specific. If you want screening, Rich said it, you said it, I agree. Say screening and then see what they can do, and it's gonna be, there's gonna be other issues anyway, beyond that.
Mr. Chair, from what I hear, the biggest problem is there should be a 10-foot setback either way. And there doesn't seem to be any setback if they're only this far apart. So therein lies the whole problem.
And someone at that point wasn't, Mr. Chairman, wasn't looking ahead and allowed this to happen, and then 50-foot lots, and, you know, again, nobody's fault, but this is how, again, reactionary governing happens. If you're proactive, now on new developments, we've got setbacks, we got road, we got cul-de-sac.
I don't think the line can actually go where that line goes, or it would be inside of their house.
Well, it's on top of the roof, the way it looks to me. To that point, before I forget, Mr. Chairman, I think the applicant has not demonstrated that the criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied because they were operating for a year and a half without a permit. They have a laundry list of licensure upgrades that they have to have. And if someone then trip on this, you know, nobody needs to come into my house to make sure we have our smoke detectors and our, what's the other one's called? The oxygen. I can't think of it. All those things, radon and all those things. You know, again, and no disrespect, but it didn't show everything wasn't in compliance. So I believe they didn't show that they're going to meet the criteria in the ordinance.
Well, then there's one more thing, Mr. Chair. If we're discussing these things, number 6 is the ringed buoy. Okay, it's on here. in 5 minutes after we get done with this, we're gonna be discussing getting rid of that. So what do we do in this case?
I would say we just get rid of 6 if it's as a condition. I mean, if that's the case, or
Well,
it
that's the way I
stays
read it,
and-
that we're gonna discuss.
Yeah.
We're gonna discuss it, but,
That doesn't mean we're
doesn't
gonna
mean it's gonna
eliminate
be
it.
gone.
Fair enough.
I'd say, and there's 22 other vacational rentals, or I don't know how many of those were under that requirement, maybe 10, but some of them were.
Only a few.
So one more, one less.
Yeah, we're supposed to stay speaking into the mics, you guys, too. And I
I'm
was
right
gonna
here.
mention that, Deb. I apologize. I was gonna state it before, and then we got sidetracked. I take the blame for that. All right. I've kind of been trying to facilitate, not opinion. My opinion, though, is actually with 4, the lot itself, the property itself, in this case, is going to make it a little bit tough to meet some of the standards and criteria that the ordinance has in place. And it's an opinion that maybe goes to Joe's, or I'm sorry, Jeff's as well. All right, anything else on 4? Otherwise, we'd go on to 5, other issues pertinent to this matter.
Has the township said anything, Mr. Chairman?
Not that I have seen, Jeff.
I have not gotten any correspondence from the township on this one.
Which would have been nice.
Mr. Chair, do we just want to mention there were concerns about access on the private drive with emergency vehicles?
Yeah, and that would be under the public health, safety, and traffic generation impacts. And duly noted, I appreciate that, Joe, because there was a lot of discussion on that item.
And then for other, Mr. Chairman, Mr. and Mrs. Halverson stated that they had the full support of the member that object to the permit on behalf of the Pearl Lake Association. So it should be noted, based on this letter, that the Pearl Lake Association opposed the permit.
Yep. All right. Anything else?
Do you think, Mr. Chairman, staff, it would be appropriate for you to contact the township like we did in Power Munson and Wakefield and Sauk Center, just to say, one came up, there might be others, you do have, I know you say you do, and I know you do, but would you mind doing it again, maybe?
Mr. Chair, so Jeff, I can certainly call Main Prairie. I have to call them about something else anyway, but I did take advice from the Planning Commission. I think it was one of your suggestions, is to continue to update and communicate with the townships. And so now what I'm doing is a quarterly newsletter to all the townships. And the last one that I did was about a month ago, and I included specific information on vacation home rentals and contact information for Munson, Sauk Center, Wakefield, my information. So I know at least 3 people in Main Prairie Township got the email. To Ken's point, did they read it? Did they not care? Did they care and not read it? I don't know. But I will definitely, I have to talk to them about something else. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
Can you share that newsletter with us?
For sure.
I mean, when you send them, might not hurt for us to see what's going on in townships.
Do we have to read it?
No. Don't start something. Sorry.
All right.
If you read it, then everybody's gonna have to read it.
All right, a motion would be in order unless there's any other
Miss-
discussion.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we recommend approval of the interim use permit with the 9 conditions as presented, with the expiration date of December 31st, 2025.
All right, thank you, Jason. Motion made. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, I will second that motion.
All right, motion made by Jason, second by Sean. All those who approve the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Roll call.
So roll call here. Sean
Aye.
is an aye, obviously. Jeff was a nay.
No.
All right, Jason is an aye. I was a nay.
I'm a nay.
Rich is a nay.
Aye.
Is an aye. Ken and I. Okay, so 4-3 to recommend approval to the county board. And Kelsey, that would be next week. All right, very good. Thank you for coming up. And good luck. Thanks. All right. That takes us to 4, which is the ring buoy requirement. So, is that Heidi or Angie? You wanna...
Be Angie.
Yes, so this was brought up a few years ago, I think, as Jeff said, maybe it's on about half or so of the permits, and I think Commissioner Persky brought it up originally because of his background and with kids and safety and pools and all that good stuff. So I don't know, Joe, I think Shelley Benson, our director, talked to you a little bit about this, but our food, beverage, and lodging staff just wanted to give it their 2 cents or their explanation on why this may give us false sense of security, or maybe a better idea would be having a no lifeguard sign down by the shoreline, things like that. So I'm not going to read through this, but it's more for your information. You don't have to make a decision tonight, or you can just make a decision the next time you have a permit in front of you.
All right. Thank you, Angie. I'll start on this. I would love to switch to something like a sign or something like that instead. And it's probably from my own personal experience, but this is a story that's, I think, relevant to this. All right. We have a quarry in Texas that is up on like a stone mountain, and it's hot in Texas. I mean, it's like a rock bear, and there's cactus growing, but there's a depression in this rock that sometimes will hold water, and there's an MSHA requirement that there's a buoy. And so we have a red buoy, flotation buoy, on a stake in a rock on top of a mountain in 110 heat in Texas with cactus growing around it. And it just makes you question why. So I think there's risk, and I know that that's what the intent was when we did this, is that how do you try to let people know, protect families, minimize risk. But I look at this as being one of those things that becomes a really tough thing to regulate later on. And I'd be for trying to do it with signage or something instead.
This was when we approved this, I talked to my wife about everything, and she's got a lot of education in school law, and in school law you get what you have to enforce, and she said this is going to be a very hard thing to enforce. Somebody has to be there watching. They've got the 60 feet in the cable, and she said from day one, she said this isn't a good thing, but we did it.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea of going to a sign, the no lifeguard on duty sign, something like that, or swim at your own risk.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked the buoy idea.
Yeah,
we assume that most everybody's got a dock or
Yeah.
something that it's easy to attach a buoy to something like that, but truthfully, some of them don't. So put up a sign almost anywhere.
The intent is good, and I think something came up with there was a stream nearby, one that we approved, and then the question is, okay, there's a little, ankle deep stream, do we put one there? And that's part of where I kept flashing back to the post up on the rock. But the intentions were good. I think we want to keep the spirit of that intent.
My memory
Does the sign
was
do
there
it?
was a pool in Sartell along the river. I could have swore had something to do with it.
Oh, it could
Or
be
is
to
that
that
the pool
too.
regulation? I can't remember.
And that is a pool regulation where it stems from.
Yeah.
Because we don't, if I remember right, we never finished, or did we, establishing rules for pools at home? Remember that person that was
guy had
killed
the
in Kimball?
pool in his backyard.
On Highway 15, that child was born right out of Kimball at a home pool, And again, this is a sign, this is just Spring Hill logic, farm boy. You can't throw a sign at somebody that's drowning and say, here, hang on to the sign. If half the people do a buoy and it saves one life, what the hell did we hurt? What do we hurt by doing that? Where we're requiring this is where, again, people are coming to a home that they are not familiar with. They don't know how shallow the lake is or anything. Wasn't my idea, but I'm not opposed to the idea. So that's just my 3 cents. At least if half the people comply and there's a buoy, and if the licensure is doing their job, once a year they're going to see that there isn't a buoy and then get a buoy. And if by chance, one of those 36 people a month that are staying in that house, somebody goes in, doesn't realize it's as deep as it is, and are thrown the buoy, boy, if we saved one life. This gets back to what you've heard me say 1,000 times. We're always told, don't worry about that. It's not our problem. That's a permit, and then that's their problem. God, we're all human beings. Let's just be proactive and think about things and help people think about things. And I don't know if this is one of them or not, but I'm always on that angle, and I hate restrictions. But you know what? Half the time you tell somebody, when we did an island in our house, we had to do the plugins around the island. It drove me nuts, and you had to have them every 4 feet. And I thought, how stupid this is. The best requirement we ever had to do. Nobody trips on the cords. They sure have all come in handy. But if someone would have told us that, we didn't see the wisdom of that. So sometimes you have to be kind of educated and then shown, and then you think, wow, that made sense. So if it was my kid or my wife or me, that buoy, because somebody had a stupid idea, would be worth it to me.
Jeff, you have to have the person has to want to grab onto the buoy. My wife was on this lake about 15 years ago. There were 2 girls out in the middle of Pearl Lake with a paddle boat. And the paddle boat was sinking. And she said, well, she had a jet ski, I'll save you. And the girls, she had a hard time. One got on, but the second one didn't want to get on the jet ski to be saved. She'd rather sit on the sinking paddle boat. And it wasn't until the paddle boat was.
Make that a requirement. They have to get on the.
They have to get on. Grab on.
Condition number 10. Let's add it.
Well, you're talking about how people react in a situation, and everybody says, "Well, I would whatever," but you never really know, and especially when you're looking at a situation where somebody is scared to death. They make irrational decisions. That's just what happens.
You're bringing a lot of people out here, in some cases on lakes that are out of the city. I'm not saying they're not as bright, but some of those people have never been on lakes or whatever.
That's why we need a ring buoy.
Then they should probably be wearing it when they go in the water, like a little floaty.
Let's make that one with the giraffe or whatever that is. And it's got to be one of those. You have to.
Mr. Chair, I brought this up a couple years ago, and I'll comment. Member Bertram mentioned a good number of things that I would say. But again, if we have a swimming pool at a vacation home rental, I think it requires us to have a ring buoy there because we have a swimming pool there. We have a swim beach here. We have a dock with water on it, okay? Now, why would we not want to have a ring buoy for somebody that falls off that dock? We've got people coming from Iowa, which maybe doesn't have a lot of water, and a lot of non-swimmers. And they walk, or maybe they have too many to drink, and they are a little tipsy, and they tip into the water. It would be nice if one of the other non-swimmers had something to throw to them. They're renting these places at $1,500 to $2,000 a week. A $20 buoy is not a great investment. It sits at the dock, it sits at the shore, and to me, it's not an issue. Is it in state regulation? No. But if it would save a life, that'd be great. If we have a drowning 2 years from now, and we say, gosh, there was no buoy down there, I think there should be some upset people here. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to die on my sword, but you folks can make the decision.
Like I feel about it, if they're so strong about making it, for the liability or whatever, instead of a condition, couldn't we make it a recommendation? And therefore, the county wouldn't be on the liability end of it if that's what we're worried about.
Mr. Chair, but Mike, I guess they're worried about the liability, but if you're requiring that at a pool, what's the liability there either? It's a ring buoy.
Yeah. We have ring buoys at the quarries in Quarry Park, right?
Buoy and the sign.
Yeah.
Right, we have them at Quarry Park, that's true. Yes.
Because I know I'm a non-swimmer. If I went to a VRBO and I walked up in the dock and I seen a ring buoy with a rope on it, I'd think, well, that makes me feel better. Because if my grandson falls off the dock, I can't swim, but I'm going to jump in. You're gonna do it, and
you can take that ring buoy with you.
Yeah, but if there ain't one there, I'm still gonna jump in, and then
And if he was 70 feet out, then he'd be out of luck. But in Pearl Lake, you could walk halfway across the lake.
Yeah, it's up to your guys' call. I mean, I'm more of an inherent risk type of person, so that's my stance on it. And I don't disagree with anything you guys are saying. I mean, I think it's novel, yeah.
If it would be coming from the public, if it'd be coming from the applicants, I'd want to hear more about it, but I don't know, somebody doesn't want to do the checklist or whatever, and I don't know how many there are, and again, if it says, what's the liability if you don't require one, somebody drowns. I mean, if you want to play that argument, then they could say, well, geez, you should have had that requirement. You know, why in the world does Burger King and McDonald's, I only see Burger King because of this, have to put on a cup of coffee, it's hot, because somebody burnt themselves. So, I mean, let's face it, we live in that kind of a world, but I don't think it hurts nothing, but whatever.
Angie, in the fourth paragraph, you talk about risk and liability. And I wonder, and then in the sixth paragraph, you talk about maintenance of the buoy and weight limitations. Would there be a way for us to learn if we're increasing homeowners' liability by having this standard? So if somebody puts a ring buoy from the Titanic that's 70 years old, or however old it is, and they throw it out there and the thing sinks, is the homeowner then liable, even though we may have provided a condition without any additional standards?
Mr. Chair, Member Wienerman, so I'm going to answer half of that question, and that would be basically what I was going to recommend. It kind of sounds like you might want to keep it on, at least the majority of the members from what I can see. And so we might come back with a proposal then that the ring buoy be U.S. Coast Guard approved, because there are standards, you know, because, I mean, most of the time you're going to go online, you're going to go on Amazon, you're going to buy it, it's probably going to be Coast Guard approved. But to your point, we did think about that. And so I think the condition might look different the next time you see one, and it might say those words. We'd have to have some of our applicants call their insurance company and find out if that changes their liability or not.
One thing with staying within the spirit, and I think something I'd be cool with, there is language in the boating regulations about a throwable device that you need to have, and it's U.S. Coast Guard approved or whatever, and that to me makes more sense, where you're in spirit of having something you can throw in an emergency situation, and then maybe we can just use that language or look at it.
Do you mean
You're
like
right. There's ring buoy and there's torpedo buoy. There's two different types. Also, just when we put the standard into 60 feet of rope is a lot of rope. And actually, when you're thinking about coiling that rope and having people play with it, possibly down on the beach, pretty soon you got a web of rope.
Yeah.
And actually, it could be a deterrent for actually making a rescue. So to me, just a ring buoy or torpedo buoy in and of itself, ring buoys usually have also rope around them, 4 different pieces of loop where you can reach and grab and throw. So, but that's
So you're
been my
thinking,
experience.
keep the buoy, but take the rope off.
Correct.
Mhm.
That would, and it can hang on the dock, it can hang at the beach, it's just there.
Got to be
And
there.
It just got, but
It
that's
doesn't
my
have to
opinion.
be a buoy, could it be a life jacket, a
Well-
flotation device? I don't know. Something.
There's a throwable device. I think there's a definition of a throwable device that's different than a life jacket, because it has to be able to be thrown.
What's the rule for that, Jason? Is there two, on a boat has to have like 2 of them, don't you?
One.
One throwable device, and then the rest has to have a life jacket, but yeah.
Have a
it's-
life jacket for every passenger and a flat approved, something like you'd sit on like a cushion.
Yeah. So Angie, is it fair that maybe there's some language options that we could, or that you could bring back to the next meeting and we could select one? Okay.
Let's do that.
Cool. Everyone cool with that?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, then that takes us to 5, which is open discussion. I think, Jeff, to your point, I mean, some of the comments made regarding, we had this discussion last month on vacation home rentals and.
Mr. Chair, do you want to
Yeah.
go through the ordinance discussion first, or
Oh,
do
did
you
I
want to
miss, did I miss that one? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. We can switch it around.
No, we'll stick to the agenda. I'm struggling tonight with keeping my paperwork straight. You can. It's been one of those days today. It's like hour 13 of it. Does anyone else have an agenda they can share? Thank you.
I did read it.
I can start. And the reason that we brought this to you tonight is because, in fact, we were waiting and anticipating some changes for vacation home rentals, but that didn't happen in the amount of time that we needed to get these other changes moving for summer of 2022. So looking at proposing some changes to the zoning ordinance. The last changes we made were about a year ago. You were all part of that. The first section is related to definitions. We're just looking at tweaking a couple things. Impervious lot coverage. There's been some discussion about class 2, class 5. Is that impervious or not? We have direction from DNR that it is, and there's a lot of different soil ratings that talk about impervious and compaction, and so we're just trying to be a little bit more clear. The solid waste transfer and solid waste transfer station are very minor changes. There's no underlying motive or intent here. It's basically just to clean up that solid waste transfer isn't a facility, it's a process, and the same for the transfer station. So those are just minor things that we've caught over the last year. The next change relates to conditional use permits, and we're proposing the change to allow conditional use permit up to 2 years, and also taking out the part that says you have to start construction within that first year or second year if you get an extension. My same rationale will occur for variances, and that is in this economy and building cycles, people are just not able to get their projects off in time. And so we're granting extensions all the time, and it just makes it a little bit more comfortable for people if they could just get it automatically. So any questions thus far?
Mr. Chairman, Angie, so currently the construction site permit is good for a year,
Correct.
and this would make it good for 2 years.
So this is a conditional use permit, is what we're talking about, 4.8.7.
Right.
So expiration of a conditional use permit.
Oh, but it says here, I'm sorry, the first red line, it says if a construction site permit has not been submitted. So how long is a construction site permit? What's the timing of both?
Okay, so the proposal is that a conditional use permit is valid for 2 years. So if on month 23, you submit an application for a construction site permit, your conditional use permit is still valid.
So it would be good for 2 years.
Right, and then you get your, let's say you apply for your construction site permit, then you have 1 year to start on that. And then you have 1 year to finish.
Makes sense.
Okay. So that goes for the variances.
Sure.
Let's see. Okay, so next is a change related to certificate of surveys and staking requirements. I've met with a lot of local surveyors over the last few months related to this, and the real reason, which those of you that have sat on our Board of Adjustment have probably seen, is that if an applicant in Shoreland applies for a variance and the lot is too small or the structure is too close to the lake, and we define what that is, they need to have a certificate of survey. Well, the certificate of survey is revealing that things aren't meeting setbacks, and things that have built that we've issued permits for aren't meeting setbacks because we are not surveyors. We don't require the lines to be staked. We don't require the buildings to be staked. And so our former county surveyor, Denny Crone, which many of you know, would be very happy we're talking about this. He talked to me about this when I first started 20-some years ago, and I'm comfortable telling the commissioners on Tuesday and you tonight that it is time to do this. And what we're proposing is that it be required if the proposed structure is less than 1.5 times the requirement. So for example, a 10-foot setback on the lake, they're proposing to be 15, then they're going to need it. If they're proposing to be 20 feet, then they don't have to do it. This policy that we're coming up with is very consistent with City of Sartell, Sauk Rapids. Sherburne County actually requires a survey for any project on a parcel less than 5 acres. that would be way too many here. So our recommendation is that this be incorporated into the ordinance, and it's been vetted, if you will, by surveyors in terms of getting the right terminology.
Like it.
It blows my mind, Mr. Chairman, that people, especially in small lots, will build a $500,000 house and never have
Survey done.
never have a survey done. I just ran across one 2 years ago. A good friend of mine showed the lot, showed what he was building. The basement was, and I said, "So where's your line back here exactly?" And he said, "Well, I don't know." And I said, "What do you mean you don't know? You didn't have it surveyed?" He didn't have it surveyed. I mean, unbelievable. And I don't know what a survey costs, but boy, I wouldn't build the house unless I'd know exactly. And then, of course, the lines are crossed. Variances have to get,
Yep.
you know,
After the fact.
we should
variances
require,
and- yeah.
again, it's one of the educational pieces. We should require that they be advised to have a survey done for property on small lots, if it's or if it's close to a lot line, but
I like this
this
language
is
though.
something at least.
Yeah.
All right, the next change relates to interim use permits, and this does get to, okay, I gotta remember what this gets to. A little bit of, well, our interim use permits, right? So some solar, some vacation home rentals, where currently it just says will be subject to review by the board upon change of ownership. And so subject to review is unclear, and so we're trying to make it clear that it's by way of a public hearing. So for example, if the Greg Elko IUP that was issued tonight would sell tomorrow to Heidi, then Heidi would be subject to the new public hearing and a new process.
And she should be.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially her. So caveat to this, and maybe we're thinking too hard about this, but one of the things that we're adding is unless at least one person is the same full or partial owner as the previous, and this gets to estate planning or LLCs, this is the same exact language that we have in our feedlot ordinance. So if it's Jason and wife Crone, and then they go to Crone Family Partnership, but Jason's a common owner in both, that would not trigger a new permit. Hopefully I explained that.
Yeah.
Okay,
And the board is the county board.
correct.
And what's section 4.18.3?
That's the public hearing requirement.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. The next is, Jeff probably was the only person on our planning commission back when we first talked about this resource suitability model. It was a fancy system model that was basically using a whole bunch of GIS layers to come up with all of our maps. Well, we do that now every day in the office. We don't need this system. We're not eliminating anything. We're just trying to clean up the ordinance and get rid of that part. And the last section is in our solar section, section 6.554.1. And I know this may raise hairs with Commissioner Persky, but I can explain why we're proposing to eliminate it for two reasons. One is that the DNR doesn't respond to our requests. So we don't get any information from them, and they are very open and honest about the fact that they don't have staff to do these reviews. So some people are waiting 6 months or so. The second reason is that,
When you looking at J?
yes, the National Heritage Information System review. So the other reason, and this obviously could be debated by all of you, it would be solar is the only land use in the county that we are doing this for. We are not doing it for ag development. We're not doing it for a new home that could be built and affect the same amount of acres that a solar farm would be, a business. And nor could we based on their current system of review. So we wanted you to be aware that there's an issue with their review time, and also have you just think about, do we want to single out solar as the only land use that we require this for?
Real quick, ignorance question, I'm sorry. Natural Heritage Information System, what is that?
It's basically a map that it's actually protected. Like Heidi and I don't have access to it, but one person in our office has access to it, and tells you within 1 mile if there's any natural or significant plants or animals, birds, etc.
Big patch of lady slivers.
Yep.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would think Commissioner Wienerman would be concerned as well. And I just find it interesting, those other examples, Angie, wetlands, you got soil and water, you've got a whole host of, different agencies that would oversee farm situation, home situation. Solar's, the one that rings true to me is the only one that we were unanimous on recommending denying was the one in Zion Township. When they said they'd have the fence that the deer could run through and the birds could fly through, and, it was in a high environment. And that one we recommended unanimously, 7-0, that we recommend denial. Now, I do know, now that we're going to administrative approval, the most recent one was in Grove Township. The Grove Township official said, why is the DNR out staking this field? Well, it's because there's a solar application for that site, so they must be somewhat responsive, because that's what led them to find out that there's an application. They didn't know with this administrative approval, they didn't know that there was a site proposed there. So they must be doing something, because that's how Grove Township found out that something was going on. The DNR was out there. So I don't know. These are put off. They're trying to get away from prime farmland, which is good. So they're more apt to be placed in wetland, heritage information areas, National Heritage Information System Review. They're more apt to be placed on the side where that's a higher concern. And if the DNR isn't doing it, that would be like saying, well, I can drive 100 miles an hour because I've done that all week and the cop never pulled me over once. Well, that doesn't change the speed limit.
I wonder, Angie, you said the DNR isn't responding, which totally understandable on their staffing level. What if we were to say will be submitted for review to the DNR, and then that doesn't require us to hold it up, but it does activate the DNR to know something's happening?
You're saying submitted versus will be reviewed by Jason?
Solar farms proposed, yada, yada,
Submitted to.
will be submitted to the DNR for review. And then it doesn't say we're sitting on them waiting for the review.
I like that.
It gives them the opportunity to review.
Yeah, they're informed.
I kind of like it.
Angie, to my point, this information about the Angie, my point relating to my concerns before is not necessarily relating to the rare plants and species as much as it is to wildlife corridors, and especially wetland areas. With our farmland, there's no question about so much wildlife habitat has been lost because of the amount of ag land that we've developed over the years. And so the places that we have remaining in some areas of townships, I mean, you can look across a county road and you can see to the next county road and there's nothing. But then there's a few spots where maybe you see a small patch of brush, okay? And what happens? A solar company comes in and says, I'm going to put that solar garden right there, okay? And what happens? Well, again, you've got this vast agricultural area and all that habitat, when those crops are cut and the snow's on the ground, the only place that those animals go is on that small piece of brush. And then we go ahead and we put a solar garden in there with a fence around it. And that's where we've maybe gone a little bit too far with what we're trying to do. And again, it can also be in a wetland, same situation, is you've got, animals going in and out of that wetland, but once you put that solar garden in there and you put that fence around it, now they don't. And to me, it's not in the best interest of the environment. And I think we can work around again, with changing the fence or at least looking at it to have some type of mitigation or some common ground that we don't destroy all of the remaining wildlife habitat. Opinion.
I like Jason's idea. I mean, you would hope to God that as DNR, if they found out that it was in a sensitive area, that they would make that a priority. You know, so at least they are being made aware of it, and then if they don't react to it, well, that's on them then.
And it won't hold stuff up. Yep,
I like it.
I like it. Good.
And then last but not least is just a tweak to our permeable surface policy. And that basically means that if you install an engineered permeable paver system or permeable concrete or asphalt, the county does allow up to 100% of that to be counted as pervious. And we are proposing that we don't require annual inspection of those anymore, but rather only require it upon request or when they're applying for a permit. So if Rich does a a permeable paver, and then next 5 years later he applies for a permit for a deck, then he has to certify it to make sure it's working. So that's what we're proposing, would be a change
But initially, it's been designed and inspected.
every year.
Well, no, but initially it's being
Initially,
designed
it
and
will be,
inspected.
Correct, absolutely. It has to be designed by
Yeah,
an
upon
engineer.
construction, yep,
Has to
it's,
be designed by an
Yep.
engineer.
so it's done the right way.
Yes.
So it should be
And it
performing.
doesn't mean that, you know, we've had people come to us and say, well, here's the Menards pavers, and
Yeah.
they're engineered by this company, and therefore, no, we're saying an actual engineer comes to your
The
property
system itself
and
is,
designs it based on your soils and perk tests. So yes, we're just proposing it to be changed a little bit.
So you just don't want to have somebody go out every year and check that it's still, the water still runs through.
Well, that is a very good point. And it's not that we don't want to, but
It's
we
you
don't,
don't.
we don't have the time.
It's the same as every other job or anything else. We
Yeah.
don't have enough people.
I'm asking for another person for 2023, and I'm really hoping Commissioner Persky could help support it.
I already got, after Joe tonight, I went on to see the road construction things for 2022. Do you know what it has there? The 2021 projects. And it says they're all completed, but there's no new projects on yet for, and
I would, you know what, as far as getting credit for the permeable surfaces though, every permeable system, even when done by an engineer, eventually plugs up. And so I don't think it makes sense to review it every year, but I would say it may make sense, particularly if it's done on like near lake shores every 5 or 10 years. It reduces the frequency, but the reality is those things will plug up eventually.
And if that's true, Mr. Chairman, I didn't know that, because it's such a big deal that we make people do this, and it's
Oh.
legitimate.
It is
on
legit,
small lots.
yep.
So if we know they plug up, and now we're saying, unless they request it, well, if I'm a homeowner, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
request it,
I-
because then you're gonna make me tear it out or clean it
Yeah.
out or do what, it's gonna cost money. So,
I mean, realistically, 10 years is probably fair. That's when, depending if you got a ton of leaves and things like that, eventually that thing's going to silt up enough that it may not be passing anymore. Then you'd have runoff, and then it's just a matter of kind of pulling out the aggregates. You guys got to reset it. There's an expense to it, or vacuum it. Yeah, there's some solutions, but
because what we're gonna get, Angie's got a thing here, well, when they come for a permit, the permit's gonna be a new person, and what's his first thing gonna be? The age-old thing? Well, I didn't know that.
yeah. Well,
And
well, rather than going 10 years, if it's 1 year, why don't we start with 5
Yeah.
years? See how that works for a period of time,
Yeah.
and some future planning commission can make it 20 years if they want to.
yeah. Well, yeah. Nope. I'm
tell us we're done.
yeah.
Okay.
Trying to see if I had another bracket buster.
So I'm hearing 5 years.
Yes.
5.
Okay, thank you. And
So Angie, the way the ordinance was previously written, what was required of the department to meet the standard?
Right, did a perk or
Well, because it says it has to be annually certified, but it doesn't say by the department.
Right, we were not doing the certification. It's an engineer who's going out and doing the certification.
Okay.
So we're chasing down, I think we have about 14 of them in the county right now, every year to make sure that we get 14.
So it was basically working with the people to remind them every year.
You need to do something.
Oh, so you're not doing it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's,
Even if though, I mean, even that being said though, that seems like a lot of burden to put on someone, and it shouldn't fail in a year.
To pay for that too.
Pay for that too.
Come and do that and, yeah.
I'm still okay with 5, even knowing that in some ways. Yeah. Even more,
So if
that's
they get them all done this year, you know you're good for 5 years from now, as long as,
You lay all those guys off.
We'll try.
well, then somebody will come and want one next year. And-
so Mr. Chairman, on the posting, Angie, it was posted on March 10th. It was posted on March 11th, sent to us, well, it was dated. We got it March 11th. Does that meet your posting requirements? I assume that's to the board on the 22nd. Because we didn't get this when we got the planning commission packets. It came after.
Right, so what do you mean
It's
for
on
the
the
board?
I-9 packet.
This was not in my
There
packet.
was a second packet.
But there's no public here, this wasn't for a public.
Well, I didn't know. I'm just making sure you're meeting your public
Right,
hearing,
so-
because we got it after, even for our discussion tonight.
Right, the planning commission doesn't hold public hearings on these changes. You give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, or somewhere in the middle. The board on Tuesday will say, yes, environmental services, go ahead and post notice for a public
Well, it's gonna
hearing
be
in April 26th.
2 months from now, or
Don't you
whatever.
remember,
month.
Jeff, we're just a recommending body.
Right. And then would you mind making the changes that we talked about
Yes.
and
they-
submitting those to us?
they
What you're
will
gonna
be
submit
made.
to them?
Sometime next week.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right. Cool. Now we are on to minutes from the February meeting. Any comments, or do we have a motion to?
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Actually, I do have a comment, Mr. Chairman,
Jeff,
before we do
Jeff
that.
I was waiting for Jeff.
Before we do that, on the, I commended the Albany Township on that, the Blattner one, that they worked it out with the people, and I said, it's great to have townships do the work to bring it to us, and I don't see that in there. Just, again, we want to encourage townships that they're doing the right thing. So the pages aren't numbered, but it's the,
Weeby Farming?
it's the, no, it was, the, Albany Township one.
Yeah, Blattner, the
That-
Weeby.
Yeah,
Blattner's
Blattner's
Albany
That's the
Township.
Weeby
Yeah,
Farming.
where it says no other correspondence. I just want it noted that the planning commission commended the township, because
Yeah.
several of you chimed in and said,
I
yes, I
remember
was
that.
gonna say that too, or, we want to commend the township that they didn't approve it unilaterally. They asked for some changes. They had several planning commission meetings, township meetings before it came to us.
Yep.
So I think we just should recognize that. Maybe go back to the tape.
Good catch, Jeff. Yeah, I remember the discussion. so.
Sorry, whoever moved it, go ahead.
I'll move it now.
Motion made by Rich. Seconded by Mike. Thanks, Mike.
No problem.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that takes us to other discussion.
Mr. Chairman, FYI, if anybody cares, there has been 2 administrative submittals of solar, 1 reapplication, St. Joe, the staff is giving me the applications, and the other one for Wakefield. So the solar applications do continue. 1 reapplication and 1, and if I said that wrong, Angie, please correct me.
You got it.
Vacation home stuff. We've obviously spent a lot of time talking about it tonight. This is going to continue to come up. So we had discussions. I think maybe to lay out, not that nothing's being done, but I think we're continuing to try to listen and hear and look for recommendations from the townships as they're vetting that. To that point, maybe we should probably be more direct in talking about it. Maybe some other things that could be proposals and start vetting it out so as we get that other feedback. I think one of the concerns was maybe overreacting or reacting too quickly to some of this because there's so much coming in all of a sudden at once that usually good decisions don't get made quickly. They get made with time to vet. But we don't really have a formal process right now, or at least a plan to bring this back up. And I wonder if it's maybe appropriate to schedule something on the agenda for a couple months from now to just have another discussion about, is there some things as some feedback's coming back from township and the public that we may want to make revisions or recommendations for in the future.
Jason, I agree. We got to get our arms around this because the proliferation of these things is going to continue. I mean, it's a moneymaker for some folks. It's a way to get into a piece of property on a lake as well for families to say, hey, I can't afford it, but if I actually rent it out, then I can afford it. And it's changing the dynamics of the way we operate on lakes and in neighborhoods on lakes. So, yeah, we've got to address it. I don't have any simple answers as we struggle every time we have one of these things.
Yeah.
Is there any way we can carve out time other than on the night that we have our regular meetings?
Sure can.
I mean, if we could, it'd be an evening, obviously, but we show up and all of us are focused on the issue instead of all the other stuff that's going on. How do you feel about that?
Well, or I mean, I don't know, or if there's a time where we're looking at the agenda and it's looking like a lighter agenda where there's maybe one item or two where there's not so much stuff, then it frees up some mental capacity as well.
My fear, Mr. Chairman, is minimally we're probably 6 months out from making changes. By the time we do what we do, and then the public hearing process of the county board potentially not being open to it or whatever, we're at least 6 months out. We're going to have how many applications by that time?
Yeah.
And again, I feel a little guilty, and it was asked tonight legitimately, well, are they going to be under the old ones or new ones? So we hear that it might be a quasi of that, but let's get this kind of reminds me of the wind turbines. At first when they hit, there was no decommissioning language to my knowledge. And we quickly grabbed onto some of that. Well, we started permitting and we ended up permitting 5 farms. Well, by the time we actually started permitting them, we went down, looked at the wind farms. We got a lot of information. I don't know if there was a moratorium that time or not. I can't remember, but we certainly weren't approving them quickly or fast. Then we started approving them. We had a lot of information that we didn't have prior. So my only fear is that we're going to be approving, God knows, 6, 7 more of them, although the 3 hot townships have moratoriums on now. So that'll help. But this will keep coming before us, and then we're kind of piecemealing these. Like even tonight now, I think this was the closest one, 4-3. So there's issues.
Well, there is. I don't know that we have a broken system though, and that's where I'm okay with 6 months. I think it can be improved, but I don't know that it's broken. I mean, tonight I'm generally for vacation home rentals. Tonight, it was the property itself. We're trying to prevent land use conflicts, and this one, to me, just had so many things going against it that we were, creating conflict. But everyone has an opinion on that stuff. So I think this is about improvement. So I'm okay personally with the 6-month window, and as long as we vet it out, and sometimes time can help you, and we'll just have to be cognizant until something maybe is improved on how we address them.
And Angie, the way we would have it. The way we would have it is having the county have the ordinance and everybody having to abide by the ordinance. But is there an option where we really would allow the townships then to be restrictive and say, we don't want any vacation home rentals? Would we be able to honor that? Or could somebody say, well, townships don't have that authority? Then let me take it a little bit further. So then within that township, could there be lake associations that lobbied the township and say, it's going to be okay on this lake, but we don't want it on this lake? And so could the townships actually control where they want these vacation home rentals to be? Could that happen?
Well,
yeah,
Joe, it could, but that's okay.
No, I'm not saying it's not. I'm thinking that might be a way to go with it.
In a way,
Yeah.
the townships are gonna
It
have
comes
to
down
create
trying to
zoning.
get
then.
people involved.
Exactly.
And giving their opinions and playing a part in it. So you don't have different things. You know, the thing is, we've got the moratorium working for us right now. So I like the 6 months, but yes, didn't Angie say that the township has the right to overrule or what the county says when it comes to that?
It's more restrictive.
So if it's more restrictive.
Yeah, they can't tell us what to do, but they can make their own rules that are more restrictive than our rules, which then allows it or restricts it from happening. Yes.
Right, so if the township does that,
Yep.
then problem solved, and they've done it themselves. The thing is, they have to do it.
One of the concerns with what I've been seeing in terms of the vacation homes, so what we talked about a lot today was an unpermitted vacation home. So they were doing things prior to the issuing of the permit, totally outside of our control. So, you know, ordinance be damned. They were doing what they were going to do. In addition, for a lot of the discussions we've had in the past, there's been a lot of supposition, there's been a lot of accusations, there's been a lot of unsupported testimony of potential outcomes for what can come for vacation homes. I would say we have, you said 22-ish? So we have 22 permanent homes. You know, summer season's coming up, which I imagine is when we're going to see a lot of activity on them. Maybe we wait through the summer season and vet what comes out. I mean, if we get 0 complaints from vacation homes, we could be making a mountain out of a molehill.
This is true. I think a lot of people are overreacting in a lot of ways about things, and it's funny when they're talking about, well, these people are coming up here and they're cutting loose, and well, don't people who are at home cut loose too? I mean, you know, and we're in a different world. You're not you guys.
That's where
Not where I live, they don't. No, we don't do
Okay,
that.
see, these senior communities are a little different.
Oh, now, that's below the belt.
Watch out for those senior communities.
last week when I went to the Sauk Center Township meeting, when they were talking about outlawing it rather than extending the moratorium or keeping the moratorium, and the neighbors down the road where I was, where that vacation home rental is, they're all complaining about the wild parties and the parking on the road. And when I think about it, when I drive down there, everybody parks their boat trailer out. You drive down the road, everybody. But boy, that vacation home rental, we're not going to let you. But the rest of them, and then they party all hours of the night. We got 4 or 5 homes down that road. It's party central every weekend.
You want to write those addresses down?
Yeah.
So you know.
Well, you know, it's tough to, you know, to tell a vacation home rental you can't have it, but then the whole neighborhood, you know, everybody else parks on the road, the boat trailer
And
there.
they're out all night, and they're lighting fireworks
And then, you know,
and making noise, and so people call the police. Like I said,
that's what the
just
police
like
are for.
Anybody else, and if you've
Yeah.
got a complaint, if it's late, if they're blocking the street, if they're loud, whatever, and then you do the same thing if that person is a renter or a resident.
But did revoke a permit.
Yes.
But there is something going on with having 18 of those since 2015. I mean, that's the reality of it. And then what did I say? I'm not going to dig it back out, but 10 of them were since 20.
Yeah.
So, I mean, something's going on. And then, of course,
I think deep down, when you think of it, everybody likes to blame it, but I think another reason for it is COVID. I'd rather rent a VRBO and stay in there rather than go to a resort where everybody's milling around. Here, it's just my little group. And that's what people are trying to do. They're trying
to go stay in a hotel.
That could be it.
Certainly.
But
those elevators, those lobbies, all those dirty people.
last month, Mr. Chairman said last month, you've got a neighbor across the bay that acts like that all the time. And I did say homeowners, in my opinion, I remember what I said, even though I live in the senior community, I think neighbors, if you live there, you're gonna be a little bit more cautious about upsetting the other neighbor permanently.
And
Parking your
responsive, too.
boats and everything. You're gonna be a little bit more considerate, I think, but
If you live there, yeah, if it's a weekend place.
yeah, you're gonna be
it-
less,
It changes
Yep.
the dynamic a bit,
We're
but,
also going to be more responsive to somebody if they come over to talk to you.
true, yep.
And you know, we also, we try to push them to be communicative. And, you know, if they don't want to do that, if they just want to,
Yeah.
you know, be angry and stew.
I agree. I mean, I think there's valid points all around, and I like Jason. I actually think that's makes a lot of sense in what you say. I mean, we're gonna have another summer to test this out and be able to make some better decisions, I guess. I mean, to me, everything can always be improved, and so with a continuous improvement mindset, let's just look at how can it be built better, but give it some time so that we can do it right.
I made a suggestion, and Angie said that the board forbade staff to do that, but I said we should just do a cross-reference of Airbnbs and these vacation home rental sites, and you could do a real quick search and find 40 of them in Stearns County and realize the 20 that are licensed and the 20 that aren't.
Yeah.
Again, are we proactive in, if they come before us, will we minimize the issues that are going on potentially and the ones that aren't licensed? I don't know.
Mr. Chair, they don't do that.
What's that?
I don't think that's legal.
They do that if there's a reason to. Last month or the month before, on the Board of Adjustments, we had one where the people built up a little cabin, a guest house, just to the size they could. And that was fine and dandy. And then they went and added a patio on. And then from the patio, well, that wasn't good enough. So then they put a 3-season porch, and then they made it a 4-season porch. And it wasn't until they went and advertised it on an Airbnb to rent it out. Then when they came to ask for a variance for the deck or the 3-season porch that they had put on, then the county caught it that they were renting it out, because when they went checking, they had it advertised. So they can do it, or they do it. It just has to come up that the person is asking for something else, because they caught these people renting it out.
All right, so as far as action steps to keep this going, as we are getting late, is everyone cool kind of pulling this up on an agenda item, maybe September, October to August, September review? Yeah, special meeting? Is that an option?
Chair? You know, at the end of the board meeting, we always have issues by commissioners. I mean, do you want me to bring something to the board as far as looking for some type of direction? Should we try to get something together?
Well, I think what we're saying is that I think we'll try to do this from a planning commission perspective here. Let the summer play out. We'll see what comes in from like formal complaints or issues that arise as more of these come up, and then we'll convene and maybe make some recommendations at that time to you guys. If there's anything in the meantime,
I'll
share
bring
it
it up.
back.
We're sensitive to it. We'll monitor it. We want to, you know,
Yep.
it's an issue out there that needs to
Yep.
be massaged or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Continuously improved, Joe.
What?
Continuously improved.
Are there any more vacation home rentals for next month that you're aware of?
Mr. Chair, Ken, I just looked at the pending items that Jennifer has, and the deadline's Monday, and there's no vacation home rentals. It looks like there's mining. I don't know if that's complete or not. And then there's going to be the plat, Jeff, that you saw yesterday, that plat and that rezoning, and then maybe a mining, but I don't know if it's complete. No vacation home rentals yet. And I don't think, Heidi, we know of any that are coming in.
None that I know are for sure submitting.
Okay.
Well, we've kind of eliminated the three most popular townships.
Which, you're right, and which could potentially, though I thought we have 2 in Cronus. So suddenly if we start restricting them in some places, will that navigate then to the bigger or different lakes? I don't know.
Gotta have the type of people that want to do it.
Well, yeah, and they're buying houses on certain lakes. Now they know they can't buy them on these lakes within those townships. So they'll start looking to buy them at Kimball and Paynesville and other lake townships. I don't know. Let's wait and see what happens.
All right.
Go out of Stearns County and buy in some of the counties where they can walk into the environmental services and say, I want to do this, and it's a done deal.
We could pass out pamphlets saying, go to Benton County or wherever these other counties.
Everybody comes over
There's only two lakes in the whole county.
Yeah.
All right. So are we good on this one? Any other open items? Cool.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Jason, seconded by the chair. Meeting adjourned.
A lot of basketball tonight.
That's right.
I
don't know that I missed it.
It could be expensive, is that what you're?
Yeah.